Welcome. This is Tuesday, January 24th, and you are joining the Pitkin County Board of Commissioners work session. And we have quite a few staff presentations this morning. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these. And we'll begin with the Open Government, oh yeah, I love this one. OpenGov Departmental Dashboard Demonstration. I love this.
Hi.
Take it away, Liz.
Hello.
She's excited over this.
I love it.
This is the best stuff.
Hi, I'm Liz Woods. I am the Pitkin County Finance Director, and I'm here to present on OpenGov. I presented it back in October to the board when we were going through the 2023 budget, and a request was made that we come back and present the department dashboards in particular. So that is what I'm here for today.
Well,
So,
welcome.
thank you. Let me share my screen. There we go. Okay. So OpenGov is available on the main Pitkin County website in this little icon here. So this is how folks can get to it, or yourselves. Do I need to do a refresher on what OpenGov is, or are you guys?
Well, maybe for the public, if there's anybody watching, just
Okay.
a really short one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So OpenGov is a company that works only with governments, and their goal is to provide transparency for governments with their financial information. So we started using it this fall, as I mentioned earlier, and all of our 2023 budget process is available on this website, and our financials are publicly available through this at any time, 24/7. If anybody wants to, public or board or staff members ever want to see. Just a second.
Just a second, I'll get this squared away here.
Morning, Kelly. Or afternoon, I guess. We have a little moment of waiting for Steve to turn off his sound.
Steve, do you need any help?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
He's got it figured out, just takes a minute.
Got it off?
No,
All right.
Okay, Liz.
So this portal is available through our Pitkin County website 24/7, so that anybody can go in and look up our financial information. So if the public or the board members or staff are curious on how much we have spent for employee benefits or for office supplies or whatever it is that you may find interesting, you can come in here and see our actuals for 2023 year to date, but you can also go back and look at 2022 and 2021 are all available on OpenGov.
That must have been a lot of work getting all that old stuff back in there.
This is updated every night with a direct link from our financial system. So luckily the information is pretty much always up to date, which is awesome. Wow. Yes. So when you first come into OpenGov, this is what it looks like as a public person. You don't have to log in. When you first come in for the first time, you may see a pop-up that gives kind of more detail on how you navigate around the portal for those who are unfamiliar with it. The piece that I'm going to be sharing today is the stories section. So next to reports here in the upper left-hand corner, there is stories. And this is where we have all of the 2023 budget information, but it's also where all of the departmental dashboards are. So you can see we're obviously still missing several dashboards, but this has been a process, and these are all the dashboards that are currently available for the public to view. I will start. Is there a particular one that you guys would be interested in seeing?
Oh, the airport, I would have.
Airport.
I imagine, but I thought I'd ask. Okay. All of the dashboards have a kind of a similar template, so that they kind of look and feel fairly similar from department to department. But the information obviously changes to be specific to that department. And then if there are changes that have been requested from that department, I've made those as well. So let me just make this Is that still readable for people?
Yep.
Okay. So we start off with just financial indicators. And so you can see we start with the net income over the last 3 years. So this year and then the prior 2 years. So you can see this is the total revenues minus the total expenses. And if we hover over, we can see that books are not closed for 2022, so these are unaudited numbers so far, so just FYI. But as of right now, the revenues less expenses in 2022 for the airport is $7.8 million, basically. And you can see that for 2021, it was $3.1 million. 2021 is audited and closed, so those are final numbers.
So what's the difference? So in the middle column for 2022, you
Yep.
click on it and you see 7,785,000, 95 million. You take it off, you see 49,000. Would you mind explaining
That's
that?
the 2023. So it always shows up. It says at the very, it's really in small text. It's hard to see right there, but it says in 2023 right there. So
First
it
3 weeks.
defaults to 2023, and then when you hover over any other year, that information shows up at the bottom.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
it's kind of
thank you,
small
thank
here.
you.
I'll go a little bit bigger.
Okay, I got it.
Right there. So that is year to date so far. Obviously, it's fairly small because we are fairly
Just puny.
fairly
It's
short into the
only
year.
50,000. Puny.
I think the other years are puny too. Getting more from that FBO.
Below that, we have basically kind of the information that's up above in the picture. We have it in numerical information. So down here, we just have the 2023 original budget, the actuals, and then you have the original budget and revised budget and actuals for 2022 and 2021 as well. So just a quick overview. So this is just kind of like a really quick snapshot, put it at the top so that people could, like, if they want to know where we are right now, are we, doing well? Do we need to cut back on expenses? Do we need to get more revenue? Whatever it is that they need to be kind of considering, that's there. Then we have the airport revenues, and this section talks about each of the categories that we define the revenues for. So we have taxes, intergovernmental, fees and charges for services, licenses and permits, fines and forfeitures, and other revenues. Those are the same throughout the county. So those are defined there so that people know what can be what they can find in those categories, because sometimes it's hard to tell, well, where is something that's a fine? Oh, it's in fines and forfeitures. So, this way they kind of get a little bit more of a definition of what each of those categories mean.
And when you say it's the same throughout the county, you mean all the different departments
Yes.
that have
Yep.
their own budgets?
So for instance, the ski company kiosk that they installed that uses 12 square feet would be in here somewhere.
Yes.
Other
I
revenues.
think it's 15 square feet.
Is it 15 square feet? We need to raise their rent.
So for the airport, they don't have, there's no taxes for the airport. They don't collect any taxes, so they won't actually have that. You can see in their year-to-date revenues. We don't have a taxes category because they don't charge taxes. But I just have the definitions up there so that they're kind of consistent throughout all of them. We also do talk about what makes up the airport-specific revenues right here. And just so, if somebody is totally unfamiliar with the airport, they kind of know what it is that the airport charges for revenues and who they charge.
Great information.
Again, obviously, we're not very far into 2023, so there's obviously not a huge amount of data yet, but we have the total revenues that are for the year to date, and then we have a breakout of what charges and services are. So there's not much in the 2023, so I'm going to use 2022 as an example. If I hover over here, you can see that 30% of the revenues for 2022 was general aviation landing fees. The next largest was the airline landing fees. So that would be for your United, Delta, American. Other, if you ever want to see what other means, you can click on this. Oh, we don't have that turned on yet. You will in the future be able to click on this and see more detail. I just need to turn that on.
Ski kiosk.
Yeah, Ski-Go kiosk. It's made up of various other items as well. Then you have your commissions. Those are the commissions that the car rental companies pay based on the revenue that they collect at the airport. And then we have our intergovernmental revenues. So you can see that 83% of the intergovernmental revenues in 2022 was federal grants. We have a small portion that's state grants, and then the state excise tax. And then for other revenues, in 2022, 62% was airline rent, car rental
Airline
rent. So
rent?
this is where all the rents are,
That
basically.
like office space rent or
Yep.
something else?
Yep.
Office space rent?
Well, they're
It's
kia-
their counter
they're-
rent, it's
They're
their counter.
counters, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
from the airlines.
Yeah, and also like their space that they use within the airport as well. So it's more than just the counter space. It's their like behind the
Their
scenes
baggage
space as well.
stuff.
Exactly. It's all those pieces as well. Yep. Then we have their historical expenses. So this year and then the last 2 years. So you can see that, you know, some of the expenses have gone up. But obviously the revenues have gone up because their revenues far exceeded expenses in 2022 so far as well. And again, for those people who prefer numbers over pictures, we have that in there as well.
And you can't go back earlier than 2021 with this.
We can, but we just feel like there's too much data that's kind of
Beautiful,
showing
right.
up. So we can go back to 2020. Anything from 2019 and before, 2019 is when we switched financial systems. And so the numbers are not very comparable because our chart of accounts was different in our previous system. We switched midway through 2019, and so kind of comparing 2019 and before to 2020 and after is difficult because like one account has been split out or it's been combined, and so it's hard to compare apples to apples.
Is there a way we have a comparison just for the, the big picture?
Yes, we can do that if we need.
10,000
Yep.
foot view, just for,
Yeah, we could do that.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we have back to 2018 in here, at least on the back end. It's not necessarily available on the public side because, like I said, it's kind of hard to
Right.
compare that apples to apples, but within the system, we have back to 2018.
It's really easy to fall into this thing.
If
You
you wanted
get
to,
caught
like,
up on the
figure out, like,
details.
How much does Jedediah's pay? Like, what did they pay in the county every year?
We don't have that detail. So we have it basically to what we call the account line detail. So if there isn't a specific one for that one in particular, but so when we say like rental car rent, that's all the detail that we have. You can't get down to like
not like
Hertz is paying
contractual
this
line
much.
item.
Yeah, exactly. So then we have similar, as we did for the revenues, we have expenses and we have the categories again. Again, these are throughout the county. All departments have the same categories. It's just a matter of if they use them or not. And it has a definition of what's included in each of these categories. So hopefully that's useful for people to kind of understand where it is they could find information that they're looking for. So this is year to date. So again, obviously it's been very small so far. We only pretty much have salaries and wages and benefits. We haven't had a huge number of invoices come through yet for 2023. So, but if you hover over this chart as we get further into the year, you can see percentage breakout for each of the areas as we kind of move throughout the year.
I have kind of a side question. So are the employees at the airport county employees?
Yes.
Well,
So,
not all of them. So the SkyWest employees that work for the airlines are not county employees. They're employees of SkyWest. Employees that are running the rental cars and such are employees of those businesses. And so we really operate, the terminal, the fire rescue, those sorts of things. In addition, the FAA has employees that one in the tower, and then also TSA are separate employees. I don't know if
See.
that, yeah.
I was just wondering about the high level of benefits compared to salaries and wages year to date. And I'm wondering if that's affected by our wellness benefits, because,
Yes.
yeah, because I'm pretty sure normally our benefits aren't equal to our salaries.
That's correct. What we have to do is our our benefits are based on when the paycheck is, and so since the last paycheck in December, actually the actual pay came in January, we actually have to move all of those benefits that
I
were
see.
on that paycheck into January, so it does look a little bit weird. Yeah.
It looks really generous.
Yes.
Okay, I get it, thank you.
Again, so you can see numerical, and you can see for 2023 original budget actuals and 2022 original budget, revised budget, and actuals here. And then down here, you can see the current year to date and the past 2 years, and you can hover over the various categories to see that, you know, typically, so last year for 2022, our salaries and wages was 21%, and our benefits is more around 7.5%. So you can see that that's more in line with the typical.
30%,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I circle back? I'm a little confused. I was just processing what you said, make sure I understood regarding the airport. Airport's an enterprise, right? So, but the employees, we have employees that are part of that enterprise, or is that a separate thing entirely with different?
Do you want me to?
take that, or do you want?
I can do it.
Okay, go ahead.
So we do have employees. I believe there's 43 employees, regular full-time employees that work for the airport. They're in the enterprise fund, so their wages are paid out of the airport fund. But then what John was talking to is that there's also several other people who work out. You might
Who are
see,
county
you
employees.
probably actually see more people out at the airport who are not county employees
Right.
when you're actually going as the public and flying through the airport, because
Right.
you're seeing more of the employees who work for United, Delta, American, SkyWest rather, the TSA, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of more manage the employees that actually work for the county and work in the enterprise fund are kind of more running the back end, the behind the scenes of the airport.
Right.
If
got
that
it.
helps.
Okay, yeah.
And Greg, enterprise funds are, both for accounting purposes, but in Colorado are also important because they have exemptions under Tabor. And so as an enterprise fund, those revenues do not get counted against a overall Tabor limit. And also, revenue bonds can be issued out of enterprise funds without a vote of the people. Yeah.
Okay.
Boy, that being said, could we not make the entire county an enterprise fund?
Yeah,
You
no kidding.
cannot make the entire county an enterprise fund because you can have no more than 10% of the total revenues
Coming from
in
enterprise.
tax revenues. Yeah.
And there also are specifics in state statute of certain funds
Right.
have to be certain funds. So that's why we have our Human Services Fund, our Public Health Fund, our Road and Bridge Fund. Those are specific requirements by state statute as well.
Be kept separate. Just
I'm
wishful
glad
thinking.
somebody knows those details.
All right, so comparison, you can see, any of these. So you could see purchase property services for 2022 was at about 7 million. It was smaller in 2021. A portion of that is due to the large runway improvements that we did in 2022, which were much larger last year than they have been in previous years. So.
Right.
And then again, for those number people, I want to keep them happy too. So there's numbers there for those who are happy looking at numbers. And then the last section that we have, so we had the financial indicators that had the overall, then the revenues and the expenses, but then we also have the operating indicators. And I think this has been the most interesting working on departments because this has to do with numbers that kind of are important to each department. So this section is going to be very different from department to department when you look at the dashboards, because the operating indicators for the airport are going to be very different than the solid waste indicators are going to be different than finances indicators, because we all do different things. And so being able to see see what we're doing, I think is pretty cool. So for the operating indicators for the airport, we have our annual in-plane passengers and deplane passengers by airline. So you can actually see the percentage of market share that makes up. You can see Delta's gone way down because they only operate in the winter, for instance. You can see that, United obviously is our biggest carrier.
What tells you which of these airlines we're looking at?
It says it right below.
Underneath
Sorry,
the
I can't
numbers.
scroll my finger down because then I get off of it, but below that 72.52% in the small text there, it says United.
Well, I believe you.
It's on my screen.
Can I make it a little bit bigger?
I see airline,
That just says airline.
United.
There it says
Oh, now I see it. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh,
Oops. So in-plane passengers, that is people who are getting onto a plane and leaving. Deplane passengers are people who are getting off of the plane and coming into Aspen.
amazing how equal.
1,500 people who haven't left yet.
It's always interesting to see that timing difference. December in particular, you can usually see a big swing there.
Oh, okay.
We have a lot more people coming in than we do
Right,
leaving in
right.
December. And then we
Yeah.
And then we have our in-plane and deplane passengers by month. So this is the in-plane passengers. Right below it is the deplane, but you can kind of see the swings in our seasons. And you can see that year over year as well. So we can, obviously, I don't know if anybody can tell the COVID year on this chart, but that's the purple line, that's 2020. So you can see that we had almost nothing in April of 2020 for passenger-wise, which
Amazing.
makes sense.
Amazing.
Yeah, but seeing that trend line compared to other years.
Commercial.
Yes, this is commercial, yeah.
And is the light blue 2022?
Light blue is 2022, yeah. So you just hover over the point that you are interested in, and it tells you, again, in that tiny little font that you can't read very well under there, what year it is that you're looking at. So this is 2019 is the dark blue. The orange is 2018, but
get
it's,
it now.
interesting to see the trends as well over time.
Yeah, this is great.
And same thing with the deplane passengers. And then the one that I also find interesting is the number of flights. So you can see that our number of flights in March 2018 was actually the highest number of flights, but obviously March 2018 for number of passengers was not the highest. That was 2022. So we have more people per flight happening more recently
Yeah,
compared
yeah,
to
that is
prior
so
years. So it's again kind of just, I'm a numbers person, so I geek out at these things.
We've kind of been learning that.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the day.
And then we have our fuel in gallons by month by year. So you can see that trend also follows fairly similar to our commercial airlines, but this is all fuel. So this is both commercial and private. So you might see some slightly different changes and ticks and everything like that, just depending on if we have, super high general aviation in a particular month or something like that.
And as you say, if you touch a line, you'll know what year it is
Yes.
you're looking at.
Yeah, you just have
You
to.
have to touch a
You don't
circle.
even have to touch it, you just hover over it.
Right,
Because
okay.
you don't want to make the mistake of clicking on it, because then it will take you into that
Right,
data.
down
So
the rabbit hole.
yeah.
I actually need to touch the circles.
Oh, are you on an iPad? No, you're on a. I was gonna say iPads are a little bit different, but
I'm on the county computer. On the computer the county gave me.
and then the last one that we have on here is the fuel in gallons by year, and it's a breakout of commercial airlines versus general aviation. So you can see that pre-COVID in 2019, we were at 46% commercial and 53% general aviation. Post-COVID, that number has changed significantly.
Does that break down by different fuel types?
No, it does not go. There's only regular and then av fuel, and we don't. The av fuel is so small that I didn't break it out.
So
on
the
here.
Jet A is
The
going to be the
local,
major.
Smaller.
Yeah, yeah,
So just
And
have
it's-
gas
and-
for those is pretty tiny.
yeah.
That's fuel that we sold.
Yes, and it's not that we sold; it's that the FBO sold
It'd be
Sorry.
nice
because
to-
they're the ones who
Sorry
manage
about that.
it.
Sorry.
It would be nice to be able to break that down into what percentage of that is sustainable fuel. at some point. Hopefully that could enter the data sometime.
Not sure there is such a thing. It's an oxymoron, sustainable fuel, don't you think?
That's
So
another
far.
That's another conversation.
So far.
Yeah, we don't have that information available, but it could be something with the FBO lease coming up. It could be something that we request as part of that new lease,
Yeah.
possibly.
It's a heck
Yeah,
of
I
a
think
lot
they've
of
been
fuel, I
sharing it,
know
yeah.
that.
So this is the airport dashboard that's available to the public right now. The other dashboards look very similar. Like I said, it's just that operating indicators that changes from department to department. So I'll just show you, we have a little bit more time, so I'll show you the library, for instance.
How long has it taken you to populate the data in this?
So I have most of the dashboard is pretty easy because I just have a template and I can update which departments are getting pulled into it. The operating indicators take a little bit more time because it's like departments have to actually either pull the information or at least get the information to me, and then I have to figure out how to actually get it into the system and then present it in a way that looks good, kind of thing. So it's been a project, but I've enjoyed it because it's interesting to
tell.
see the
It's-
different areas.
Remarkable that this is the work of one person.
This is something you probably do on the weekends.
Remarkable.
You like it so much.
I have shown people on the weekends.
We are worried about what she does for fun.
So I'll go to Liz's
not.
house and look at data.
It's so much fun.
Not off-season.
That's true. Yeah. You know, with my knee surgery and everything, I haven't had much else to do, so.
Oh, I think this is awesome.
So for the library, theirs is obviously a little bit different in the operating indicators. The rest of it is very similar, so I'm just going to bypass all of that. But they have their physical items circulated to library patrons. You can see 2019, 2020, and 2021. Obviously, they took a big hit during COVID as well, and we actually talk about what happened and all their closures and everything so that the numbers have some context around them. And then they've also set goals for themselves in 2023. So these targets are the goals that the library has set for themselves in 2023. They want to try and get more back in line with 2019 numbers as their goal. And so we have, those are the physical items. We have our e-materials borrowed, so you can see that that actually has not gone down, which makes sense again because, a lot of things went while we were, or electronic as we went through COVID. And then you have your total material circulated. And down here you have your in-person programs offered, their on-site attendance at programs, and their public service hours. So those are the operating indicators that they are tracking. And it will, like I said, it'll be very different for each department. Finance, we don't necessarily have that. We have things like our bond rating and getting a clean audit. Those are kind of more of what our operating indicators are. So it's very different department to department.
Do we have information like on energy dashboards for the library? Like what's the utility bill? Sorry. Wondering do they have utility bills or?
We don't have anything like that on here yet, no. And if that's something that we want to do in the future, we can look to do something like that, but we'd have to pull that information in probably from other areas.
Right. I know.
We do have some dashboard,
Facilities has it.
correct. Yeah, not necessarily pulled from our financial data though.
Got it. I just think it'd be great to be able to integrate that somehow. As you look at
Right, like OpenGov doesn't presume just finances, right?
but that's how much more do we?
Well, it might, but.
Any other questions?
Good stuff,
Oh,
Liz.
this is fun.
This is awesome.
I know what I'm doing next weekend.
One interesting thing about libraries that I just read this morning is that some libraries have so many homeless people going every day. And I don't think that's as much of an issue here, although there are some homeless people who would go every day. So some libraries actually have these little personal hygiene packets that they will hand out to their whatever of their customers they want, and they have a social worker on staff to work with the homeless people to get them plugged into services that they might not know how to get access to. And that's the kind of thing, if we had a huge homeless population here, just tracking the patrons that going into the library could be an interesting thing. Maybe not necessary in our library here, but.
Carbondale has a regular guy who's in there every day.
Yeah, and obviously that'd be something that the library would have to put a system into place to be able to track would be something that they would have to do.
We are, as we transition leadership at the library, though, one of the things that, we started having conversations about is how do we link, because the library and law enforcement and our human services departments are seeing a lot of the same people, as you said, Steve. Fortunately, we're still small enough a community that we can probably communicate to get appropriate services to folks, and so that would be the conversation I think that we'd be having locally here along those lines. If you don't mind me just jumping in real quick, just to really thank Liz, thank Ann. This has been a long project, and this board has a retreat coming up, and most of you won't remember because you weren't necessarily at the retreat, but many retreats ago now, we talked about one of our big rocks being modernization of the organization, and that included our facilities, it included how we use our information technology, included our business processes. And getting to a point like this took a lot of groundwork and modernization of our finance policies, our chart of accounts, the technology that it got built on. All that foundation had to happen. It's just this is a really great example of how your retreat discussions and goal setting, sometimes it does take years, as it did. And I think we started talking about this, or you started talking to me about this while we were still office down in Basalt, building this building. Yeah. And all the work that had to go in. But it's continued to be a focus of this organization to continue modernizing. And so as you're having these discussions next week about big rocks and such, understanding that does get embedded in the organization, and we do sometimes make slower but make progress towards those goals, building the foundation here. So,
Francie, can I?
Of course.
My only concern is Munis. So what happens when Munis is down because Munis is down, not as much, but it's still down a lot. Will it do a catch-up then when it comes back in? Okay.
Yeah, it basically resyncs every night. So if Munis happens to be down for a day, it just will just take an extra day. It'll catch up the next day. Yeah.
And modernization is not without its challenges.
Yes.
And Munis
and we
has
are
presented
working on
us with
that very actively. IT and finance are both working on that. So hopefully.
So I'm hoping that it'll be sooner than 6 years.
Yes.
When you can actually show me that Munis has saved us money and time, but this is great.
Well, this would not be possible had we not made the change.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but we might have changed to a different system than Munis. I mean, that was coming up, but we thought we were going in the perfect direction, but technology always, as you said, offers us challenges.
Yeah, and I will say, technology obviously offers challenges, but I keep reminding people of where we were before we had Munis as well. We were paper processing our AP invoices. So people were getting paper invoices. They were getting those signed in person by different people. They were emailing those to us in Basalt at the time, and then they were printing them out again to actually print that out and then attach it to the warrants, and then go, and we were sending all that paper to get scanned into a system. So that process is light years beyond, obviously, right now we are than where we were then. And thank God we did that before COVID, because if we would have still been in that paper process before COVID hit, we would have been in a lot of trouble. I've talked to so many entities that were still in those paper processes, and they struggled mightily in those first few months when nobody was in the office. So the fact that we could still get out thousands of economic assistance payments and all of that stuff during that time was due to the fact that we were in our new system and that we could do things electronically. So I know we have our issues, but I just want to remind people of that as well. You have to look backwards to look forward sometimes.
Well, I think that the one thing
yes, that too.
The one thing with Munis that concerns me is when it's payroll time, and then when it goes down, and we want to make sure that the employees get paid.
Yes. And
That's
we
a
have not had an
priority.
issue with that so far, knock
I
on wood.
know, so,
I
thank
think
you.
they probably work pretty hard
Yeah.
to make sure the employees get their paychecks,
Yes.
no matter what's happening.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you for this. This has been great.
Yeah,
And-
great stuff.
And I would just add, I do think it has helped us efficiency-wise massively because our, the volume of
You should
accounts
come to a
payable
mic, sorry.
transactions.
We want everyone to hear what you say.
All those people that are watching us.
In the
I
room.
would say that it has made us hugely more efficient because we haven't added any accounts payable stuff or any payroll stuff in the last 6 years, but the volume of transactions we're processing's probably gone up about 30%.
Yeah.
So that's just been absorbed into the existing stuff. Another benefit of a system like this is the control. When you're pushing bits of paper around and carrying checks and everything, the opportunities for fraud or even just mistakes and errors is high. And the controls are that much greater in a system like this. So I would say it has been a huge benefit,
Good to hear.
cost savings to the county for sure.
Well, it is an amazing system, but it's powered by the people behind it, and
Yeah.
we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Just remember to pay your subscription to it.
And
Now
Liz,
that
you
we're
can take
hooked.
the weekend off.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
On schedule.
And our next presentation is with Dallas. Hi, Dallas. Welcome on the Coal Basin Methane Project update. And I see that Mona and Chris are here as well. So if you guys all want to come up, that's fine.
All right. The team's here.
Gang's all here. Yeah, thank you all for having us.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Hello again.
Okay. So I guess we'll tee this up. We're talking about Coal Basin first, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
You have to introduce yourself
right.
first.
Sorry. So I'm Dallas Blaney. I'm the CEO at Core. And Chris?
My name's Chris Caskey. I'm the founder at Delta Brick and Climate Company and contracting with Core on the Coal Basin project.
And I'm Mona Newton. My company is Energy Smart Solutions, and I'm contracting with Chris Caskey on the Coal Basin project.
Nested contracts.
So I'll just tee this up. Mostly I just want Chris and Mona to talk about Coal Basin. There's a lot of really exciting news to share, give you updates on our progress to date, address any questions you all have about the project. I think it's a very exciting project. This is my 6th month on the job, so I've been digging my heels into this and really focused on it, and I have to tell you, Chris and Mona are amazing to work with. They're doing an incredible job from my perspective, and I'm really excited for you all to hear from their lens how this is going and where this can take us in terms of addressing all that climate pollution spilling out of that abandoned coal mine up near Redstone. So, Chris, take it away.
Yeah. So there should be slides. I don't know who's in charge of the slides.
I don't either.
Who would have
Are
them?
we in charge of them?
Maybe Mona has them.
We aren't.
But if you guys want to pull them up.
Okay. Yeah, is there a way for us to share our screen?
That's what you asked, and I'm like, oh, I've got mine out.
You can go into the work session agenda and just go ahead and click the agenda. And then go ahead and copy that link and put it into your website.
Excellent.
She's our sound monitor.
Do we have folks online today? I see the camera.
We're always live grassroots.
Yeah.
My mom watches
Wonderful.
sometimes.
Plus, it's recorded, and you can rewatch these meetings
Over and over
over and
again.
over again on
Wonderful.
Grassroots TV.
Getting a lot of views on YouTube.
If you have
It doesn't
insomnia.
speak very well for your life, but you can do it.
Yeah.
If
I've been doing it a lot lately for
you
some
tire of
reason.
OpenGov, you can go to our meetings and do that.
As we get this set up, I'll say the Coal Basin project is going well. We are in the permitting phases right now with the Forest Service, and we really appreciate the support of the county in providing the money for the National Environmental Policy Act work. We've spent some of that on a cultural resources inventory where we had an archaeologist go up there and have a look, and they said, sure enough, this was a coal mine. and we're also spending some of that money on a civil engineer who is looking at the road improvements that will be necessary for getting equipment up there. So we're looking at, the minimum possible impact, but that does require putting in some culverts and so forth.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes,
about
please.
that? So the road improvements at this point are just enough to get the machinery in for the flow test, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Oh, turn off your
I'm
volume.
sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I don't think I followed this as closely as some of the folks who've gone on the tours, so feel free to offer detail.
Yes, great. Yeah,
Like what
and-
Francie's saying, I'm like, oh, where is that road gonna be? Like, what is the call,
Yeah.
These
What
are
is the
existing,
equipment?
these are
Yeah.
existing roads being reopened.
Correct.
And they're big roads.
Yeah. So we'll have some of this in the slides, but
Okay,
I'll go
perfect.
ahead and
Thank you.
get the streams crossed here while so the mines are up high. They're at about 10,000 and 10,400 feet is where the methane's coming out. And the road closure is down just below 9,000 feet. But there's an existing wide road, like 40-foot wide roadbed that they hauled coal up and down there. And that is open currently to horses and hikers. It's not open to wheels. So however, our first objective is to measure the quality and quantity of gas that's coming out of there. We have reports from the EPA and Colorado Energy Office that says there's an enormous amount of gas coming out. And I've been up there with methane detectors and found several large leaks. And so the question becomes, in order to have a mitigation project, how big does that project need to be, and what quality of gas is there to support which flavor of project? So if we have very low quality of gas, cleaning it up is really expensive. If we have low quality gas, we can clean it up with the flare, which is just burning it, basically. We've been trying to get the name thermal oxidizer to catch on, but it's really not catchy. So enclosed flare is the thing. And hey, we've got slides. And then if we have medium quality gas, then electricity generation is possible. And then, the number of flares or the amount of electricity is really defines the size of each of those options. So,
About
yes.
that, I believe I heard from, I thought it was through you, but it might have been from somebody else, that there is a recent concern about the amount of methane compared to what we were hearing about 6 months ago. Is that true?
Well, concern meaning finding more or finding less?
Less.
So there's been a lot of attention on this one leak where you see my picture right now. So that's the biggest single leak that we found, and it's straight blowing out gas, and some of you have been up there. That one leak is much lower than the total quantity of methane that is expected, but we know that there's many, many more leaks over the 8 square mile area, and we don't know what all of those leaks add up to.
I see.
Yeah, so there's been some focus on, there's only 100 tons per year coming out right from this site. We're like, well, that's actually a lot, thing one. And thing two, does that make us believe that the rest of the other sites add up to the nearly 10,000 tons per year, which is what the EPA suspects is there. So we need to do some flying over with a methane detector to get a good picture of all the leaks that we have found and that we haven't yet found.
I think I know the answer to this question, if you don't mind, but I want to be sure. So if you plug a lot of those leaks, the ones you can find, if you
Yeah.
plug those, are they connected enough that then that will increase the flow out of one effluent area, or not?
That is the goal, yes. Yes, they were all connected underground at some point, and as they're mining, they're building walls to block off areas, but they're like wooden walls. And then, the ceiling is collapsing, which is in some cases blocking methane flow, in some places making it easier. So our objective would be plug a few of the leaks that are right together, put a pipe into one of them, suck on that pipe and hoping that that negative pressure will turn off other leaks that are farther away that we didn't want to cut a road to, and then gather it at that one point.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Yeah. So here are some slides, and that's the picture. And next slide, please. So SF 299, that's simply the form that we filled out for the U.S. Forest Service asking permission to go up there and do what we're calling the flow test. The flow test is that temporary, a few plugs, one pipe in, suck on it, and determine, is it very low quality, is it low quality, or is it medium quality gas? And that gives us the very difficult versus do a flare versus maybe electricity question through. We have received the federal funding has been awarded. We continue to work with the Department of Energy Program Officer on a contract between Corps and DOE. We thought that would be done by the end of the year, and now we think it'll be done by the end of the month. And we got, 9 days left, so close. And then Mona later will tell you about the outreach that we continue to do. Next slide. So with those federal funds and with the matching funds that Corps has brought in and that the county has brought in, we are working on permitting. We will be practicing that plugging, which is, we're sucking on one leak, we're going to plug others. We have an example mine outside of Paonia where we're going to work on plugging. That is a possible future site for my ceramics factory. And we've been very transparent with all the stakeholders and with Department of Energy that's happening to avoid the perception of any self-dealing.
Another question. I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
You didn't mention anything about the Atlanta,
Yes.
that funding.
Yes. So Atlantic Aviation donated, $500,000 to Corps, and
Yep.
and
Oh, so that's funneled through Corps.
Yes, so we received $250 last year. They pledged another $250,000 for the first quarter of this year. It's not specifically earmarked to this project, but it's their wish that the money goes towards this project.
Okay.
So
when you mentioned funding from Corps, that included that?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
thanks.
yep. We'll use the knowledge that we learned in Paonia to be more effective at plugging these leaks up in Cold Basin. Then we'll do the flow test. We're on track to have it happen this summer. We then need to reclaim everything, including the road and taking out those culverts. And that's because the Forest Service looks at projects that have a bow on them, that have a start date and an end date. And the end date is leave it how you found it. So we will then take the knowledge that we learned from the flow test to give a fresh proposal to the Forest Service. And that will be for the more permanent project. And that permanent project is most likely to be, hey, we found low quality gas, let's put in those oxidizers and destroy the methane. And then we also,
meaning low percentage of methane?
yes, yeah. And then we'll begin that permanent project with this federal funding. Next, please. So this is just an illustration of what the mine voids look like in cross-section. And there's two mines sitting on top of each other. The photograph from the start was at that lower mine, and there's gas blowing out, so methane's lighter than air. It's coming up and out. And then there's another mine sitting up on top of it. And if we go to the next slide, what we want to do with the flow test is dig away that earth seal a little bit, put a pipe in there, and pump a bunch of expansive foam. And we'll do that with several of the leaks. And that expansive foam will keep the methane in. We'll then put in our own pipe to gather the methane, then suck on that, measure the methane as it's coming out, both quality and quantity, and then we'll burn it just to keep that small amount out of the atmosphere. Next, please. So the Forest Service has our most recent application. We've been going back and forth on small tweaks with them. I mentioned at the start here the cultural resources review and hiring the engineering firm. We are still on track to perform this flow test this summer, and we've been continuing to interact with Coal Basin Ranch and the Katina Foundation. They are the property at the lower end of Coal Basin, and they've brought on a consultant to help them understand our proposal. They also continue to work with CSU on measuring the methane leaks, and that may have been where those lower numbers came from, because CSU is very focused on that one set of methane leaks.
That's the Walton family?
Yes. And next, please.
Can I have a question about?
Yeah.
Where people are hiking, is that the roadbed?
Yes, yes, that is the roadbed right there. And that, where they're going across right there, is one of the places that needs a culvert.
And this used to take really big trucks, right? Massive.
Yeah,
trucks.
Yeah. They brought the coal down on trucks, so there's a ton of compaction on the roadbed. And actually, something that the Forest Service asked us was, "Hey, could you we gave them a list of equipment to send up there, and they said, could you send a bigger tractor up?" And so on the way down, actually rip up the roadbed in order to let water percolate in there more. And then a different Forest Service employee was like, no, that'd be a whole different permitting thing. Let's not do that for now. But there's an acknowledgement that the road has not been fully reclaimed. But there's also an acknowledgement that there are little Christmas trees and grass growing there. So, so our goal is light touch.
And
so it's
when was
impervious.
the last time the road was used? How many, 40 years ago? Is that what you said?
The mine closed in '92, and there was heavy equipment up there, I believe, in the early 2000s doing reclamation. I don't know when the last time it was open to wheeled vehicles was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the concern right now is that it's impervious because it's so compacted.
Yeah. On one hand, the concern is it's impervious, and that's why the trees aren't coming back in. On the other hand, there's some people have the opinion to just leave it as it is. Don't rip off the Band-Aid. Let it heal slowly. So that's in all the public outreach that Mona's about to talk about, that's one of the trade-offs.
So in terms of the road, let's go to medium quality methane. We actually can proceed with some kind of electricity generation. What kind of traffic will the maintenance of that facility require on this road?
Yeah, the road would have to be reopened enough to get passenger vehicles up there or like a cement truck up there, because that would be necessary to get the project in. Once either a flare or an electricity project is in, the traffic on the road will be very minimal, because in the case of electricity generation, the actual facilities would be down lower and there'd merely be a pipe along the road. In the case of a flare, the facility would be up at the top, but it would be very autonomous. It'd be controlled remotely. We'd send a maintenance technician in, once a month, once every 2 months to actually turn bolts. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it wouldn't take commercial, industrial-sized trucks any longer. The road could be minimized.
Yes. Yeah, our original proposal to the Forest Service said, hey, we've got a 40-foot wide roadbed, 40, give us 14 feet, and we'll weave it around and avoid the little trees and stuff. And then that was viewed, that was going to put us in a longer permitting process. So then we said, hey, let's leave the grass surface and we'll just put in culverts where we need culverts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve.
I've been thinking about the flow test and the engineering of that. My thought is that the inlet down by the lamp house, which is quite a large opening and has a huge amount of fresh air being sucked into there, I think there's probably a chimney effect going on with that fresh air going in and then the
Yes.
diluted methane coming out the top. And
Yes.
as part of the flow test, my thought is if you could control the air going into that
Yes.
opening down by the lamp house, and maybe experiment with it. You might want some air going in there, but you might want only half as much or something.
Yeah.
That could perhaps, I think it would increase the percentage of methane that you're pulling out at the top.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right. The air's sucking in, and because it's warm underground and it's got this outlet at higher elevation, it's exactly doing a chimney effect. So we've asked Katina Foundation for permission to seal up that in such a way as to let the water out but not let the air in. And of course we'd have a valve that would let air in if needed, or restore what's there now.
You might need some air going in there just to help the process of sucking it out the top.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Should this get to the medium quality gas phase, what does the permitting state, like phasing look like
Yeah.
for that?
Yeah, we are, to do a permanent project, whether it's a flare or electricity generation, is going to be a multi-year permitting process. And so it would again start with the Forest Service 299 application. It would be much more extensive in terms of our engineering on the road, engineering on the actual equipment, sound levels on the equipment, all of these sorts of things. And so that we'd again do the NEPA process, and instead of taking a year, it's probably taken 2 years. So any permanent project is looking like 2025 is the most likely time.
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
It's not like we're in a hurry or anything.
Well, there's a company that I'm acquainted with that has little flares you can put on a backpack, and I'm like, what if they showed up? So, but now that I've said it to the camera, it can't happen.
Okay.
And next slide is Mona's got some things to say.
Great. We have been, since we've started this project from day one, we've been trying to be as transparent and engaging with the communities as much as we possibly can. And so Redstone being the major community that's been involved, we've held a couple of public meetings there where Chris has been able to give a presentation, co-sponsoring with CORE. Actually, CORE sponsors it, and then we do the work there. And we are planning on holding a couple more meetings. We've been in conversation with a couple of the community leaders there, and we'll be doing we're planning a couple more meetings this late winter, early spring, and that is apart from anything that the Forest Service would do. Again, we're trying to understand what their concerns are, make sure that people are really fully informed about what we're trying to do, that our permit request right now is just for the flow test. Granted, we're hoping that we'd be able to move into a longer term project that really destroys the methane that's there, but our first step is to get the flow test done. So we're going to be holding a couple of other meetings. As you probably are aware, or maybe not, we developed an advisory group over a year ago, because Chris and I have been working on this for about a year and a half now, and we have a coal basin advisory group, and that really is some stakeholders that we identified early on. That includes Holy Cross Energy, Ski Co., Roaring Fork Conservancy, because they've done a lot of the reclamation work up there. They have concerns about erosion and water quality. We've also been working with CVEPA, the Crystal Valley Environmental Protection Association. They sit on the group, and then Wilderness Workshop. So Peter Hart is their policy person, while Julie Slicka is on a leave. So he also sits on our group.
And does that include the Bureau of Reclamation, did you say?
It does not include them. We have not invited them. They're stakeholders. It's an interesting idea if you're suggesting that. We do invite them to our public meetings, actually the Forest Service. And so I'm going to finish just a minute about this, and then I'm going to address your point. But so we're also going to add some more people from Redstone, because we realize CVEPA, while it's Crystal Valley, it actually doesn't have any Redstone residents who are sitting on our group. So we're going to expand our group to add some Redstone residents to help have that conversation, that back and forth conversation with them.
And who are the Redstone community leaders, I think you said, that you're talking with?
Yes, so a couple of the folks that we have heard from, Chuck Downey and Gentry, oh my God, Houghton, yeah, have expressed some concerns. We've had some conversations with them, and as you probably know, Gentry is the owner and editor of the Crystal Valley Echo. So she's got a good pulse on the community. So I've been in conversation
Do you
with
have
them.
anybody from Redstone who's not objecting to it, or only people who are objecting to it?
Well, they are not sitting on our advisory group. We've just been having separate conversations with them about how to reach the community better. Because there's been some conversation or that some statements that we haven't been reaching out as good as we potentially can to get people to meetings, and we really want everybody to know about this project, to understand it, to express their concerns. We want to hear from them before we really go into it. So we're just trying to be more just outreach more effectively and get more people to these public meetings. So we're going to do not only an evening meeting, we're going to do a coffee in the morning for retired people, just really kind of get the word out so they understand what we're trying to do up there, and that, it's a flow test and what the issue is. I think that's the other piece is that, those of you who know me know that I've been steeped in climate action for such a long time and such a believer that I forget sometimes that not everybody has that same level of depth of concern and also information that while yes, we're going to have to reopen the road, that there's damage that's being done every day, that methane escapes from those mines. It's being done every day from the cars and the houses and the planes that fly in, and this is another source of the greenhouse gas emissions that we really need to deal with, that are impacting the elk herd, that are impacting the hunting, that are impacting everything that people love about that area, right? So I think that's the other piece, is that we want to communicate that to them, that it's not just that we are not attempting to do anything that's harmful up there, but actually opposite, to help heal what's been done up there for 50 years and what's been escaping up there. So that's part of our effort to reach out to the public and to get more people involved and just really engage them so we can answer questions. Because when I've had conversations with people just casually over the holidays, I had the opportunity, and there isn't a complete understanding of what the problem is and or what the solutions are. So,
Yeah,
is
Kelly?
there science that indicates localized effects from the methane release, right, like in the vicinities? I don't know the climate
it
science
isn't
like that.
quite as specific, but but Chris is ready to.
Yeah, the really local studies have not been done. So methane, when it breaks down, leads to ground level ozone and smog, and that is a respiratory pollutant. However, it's also windy and methane's lighter than air. So those impacts are really being felt by people who already have respiratory pollution burdens, as opposed to the relatively healthy outdoorsy people of Redstone. Those, they might be feeling a marginal impact. The study hasn't been done, but basically the pollution spreads out. And so your low-income folks, your folks who already live near highways and power plants, those are really the people feeling the acute.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful. Thank you.
And Commissioner Jacober, we have some proposed dates for Redstone meeting, and if you were interested in attending, we can tweak those dates to make sure they work for you.
Okay. I just want to say that I thought for the last round of meetings that you had in Carbondale and Redstone, your outreach was amazing. I saw stuff everywhere. And so I don't know who's saying that you need to do more outreach, but I was really impressed last time around. And you had great attendance, so I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Well, we want to elevate that so that we get more people to come, and that's CORE's outreach team and some of the work that we did, so we're going to continue to do that. And thank you for that. So, And then I think lastly, Crystal River Caucus has invited us to make a presentation in March. I think you probably heard that as part of the conversation. So we'll specifically make a presentation to them at that point about the project. So, and then in this spring, we'll probably do some more public hikes once we can get in there. I mean, you wouldn't want to take people in there right now, but I mean, you might if you want to go back and do skiing, but probably not a hike, so.
Yeah, if you just want to send me those
Sounds
proposed
more
dates,
fun.
I'll get back to you on that.
Great, thank you.
If I can, I just want to add 2 more points to build on what Chris and Mona shared, which is amazing. They're great to work with. The one point I want to make is, and I think this is important to underscore, is that everything we're doing on this project is setting a new precedent, a national precedent, because this is a project that's happening on Forest Service land in an abandoned mine. And that has not been done before. So the timeline for all of this work is extended because this is new stuff for the feds to deal with and for everybody involved to deal with. Is that an accurate statement? So I think we're setting a precedent here. We're setting a new model that can be a model other communities can follow if they're trying to address similar issues in the future, which I think we should all be very proud of. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, real quick. I know you've already reached out to the senators, but sometimes you need a little help getting them to maybe come to meetings or staff. So just let us know if there's anything we can do to help on that level.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question for you, Chris. At the beginning of this, at your presentations in Carbondale and Redstone, I felt there was a lot of momentum towards the idea that there would be enough methane for you to create electricity, and like I think you sort of felt the same way at that time, and so we were super excited about that. And so it's that step back that I was actually asking about before, the step back from that, and now saying it'll probably be flares. So I'm feeling a little bit of disconnect here between what I heard during the last year and what I'm hearing today.
Yeah. Yeah, so to speak to that a little bit, there certainly may be enough methane there for electricity and a sufficiently high enough quality. What we have experienced over at SCECO's power plant in Somerset is that air getting into the mine has a real impact on your ability to operate. So there's plenty of methane over at that mine, but it's been diluted from leaks from the surface. Now, I would love to do electricity personally. It's a heavier lift both financially and from a impact stakeholder standpoint. But the question is, is air going to get in? And looking at the mine maps, there's many leaks over that 8 square mile area. If air starts sucking into any one of those, or if you get too much air in, it hurts your project. And then the way to prevent the air is to go cut a road to that leak and drill into it and pump it full of foam. And cutting roads is the big thing that is concerning. So certainly electricity is still a possibility. Probably the prudent thing to do, unless the flow test shows just enormous quality and quantity, the prudent thing to do would be put in a flare, relatively inexpensive, run it for a year. If the quality stays high, then you can feel confident going and spending another $10 million to put in electricity generation. So does that answer your questions?
Yeah, I think it's a much sexier sell if you're generating electricity than having a big fire up there.
Yes. Now, I haven't mentioned, but one of the things we've done over in Somerset is manufacture water. So when you're burning methane, you're making CO2 and H2O. If you cool down that exhaust, just like steam coming out of a tailpipe, you can get liquid water. And that would be that'd be my sexy sell, would be something around that. Yeah.
Even 30 acre feet of it?
When?
Well, it's a couple acre feet.
Yeah. Single digit acre feet. But you're in acre feet. You're not talking gallons. And there's a jump. Yes.
But from a climate perspective, is there better gains one way or the other from burning it versus capturing it for electricity?
Yes and no.
burning both ways.
Yeah, you're burning it both ways, and you're still releasing CO2 both ways. So in either case, you're getting that delta between how much heat methane traps and how much heat CO2 traps, and that's both phenomenal. If your electricity generation is also displacing some other fossil asset, then you can kind of claim that benefit as well. So, so in that sense, electricity might be better.
But the effect of methane on the greenhouse gas effect is something like 83 times that of carbon dioxide or something?
Yeah, it depends how you count, but 84 or 86 are normal numbers, and if you look at a longer time horizon, then it's 25x. But it's times, right? It's 25 times,
Yeah,
not
it's a factor,
25% more. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions for Chris
No,
and
this is
Mona?
great information.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
guys. We really appreciate the
Thank
support.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great to be
Hard
caught up, really
plodding
appreciate
work.
it.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a long, slow slog, but it's worth doing.
It is.
It's faster than most government things. I'll keep an eye out for your email.
I will. We'll send you that.
Was RAFTA
Thank you.
part of that as well? It wasn't RAFTA was on the committee?
Yes, they are. I didn't
Right.
finish.
And
naming
they have,
things.
yeah, there's still others on that committee. And RAFTA's specific interest was thinking that if it could generate electricity down the road, it could possibly fuel electric buses.
And Picken County is part of the Coal Basin Advisory.
Oh, sorry.
And Picken County is part of the Coal Basin Advisory Group.
That's probably a good idea.
And we don't speak for the advisory group.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for
now, Dallas, you're going to give us a core budget follow-up? Is that correct?
Yes, so on your agenda, I think it originally said that we were going to come to you with a further request for our grant initiative, and we met with staff last week, and we all agreed that we're in the midst of, as John was saying, you guys are going through a modernization process. We're doing that at CORE as well, and we're in the midst of a strategic planning process. So what we'd like to do is postpone that conversation for another day, and I know we're kind of running out of time right now, so if you all would like me to, I can give you an update on our performance at CORE for 2022. We're working on our Q4 report for you all right now.
Yeah, we would like to have that.
Okay, great. Well, I can start off by sharing that it's all really good news. We met all of our performance goals for 2022. And so I'm going to get not as number happy as one of your last speakers, but I'm going to share a few numbers with you all to tell you where we stand right now with our performance last year. So last year, we awarded over $1 million in grants and rebates for energy efficiency projects. These were for commercial and residential projects, includes everything from solar panels to induction stove installs to improve the comfort, the safety, the affordability of homes and businesses throughout the county. So we're really proud of that. We also conducted 195 energy assessments in residential units and 30 energy assessments in commercial buildings as well. The net outcome of all of this work is that we were successful in offsetting nearly 5,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide last year, which I know doesn't mean a lot to most folks. So the equivalent that's roughly equivalent to taking 1,100 cars off the road. So we're really proud of that success. And I thought, if it's okay with you guys and we have some time, I can unpack all of that for you. And if you have some questions about it, certainly feel free to raise your hand. I'm happy to answer any I can.
Why don't you take, like at least 5 minutes? I mean, if we're 5 minutes behind, we'll survive.
Okay. Sounds good. So one of the projects we're most proud of is our partnership with APSHA. So out of that partnership, we conducted 100 energy assessments in deed-restricted units last year, including 5 HOA level complexes. And those assessments led to $220,000 in grants and rebates awarded for energy efficiency projects in deed-restricted units last year. And there are more to come. the awarding of grants and rebates is a little bit of a lagging indicator. Most of this work really kicked off right around August, so about the time I came on board. So we're continuing to get interest in moving projects forward, which is really wonderful. We also did a lot of work on community-focused organizations. We awarded over $165,000 in grants and rebates for organizations like the Aspen Fire Protection District, the Aspen School District, and the Town of Snowmass Village housing projects. So we're really happy about that work and want to continue that on in 2023 as well. We also awarded $50,000 in an energy efficiency grant for a high efficiency heat pump system for water and space heating in the new guest services building at Buttermilk. In addition to all of that, we also stood up a new fundraising initiative at CORE. You heard some of that earlier. We've had some early success. This is the kind of work that CORE really hasn't done a lot of in the past, and at your guidance, we really dove into that, realizing where we stand with some of the REMP funding going forward and making sure that we're in a good position moving into the future to be able to amplify our work. So last year we were successful in raising $480,000 in new money, and already this year we have $450,000 pledged. And we're continuing to build on that success to try to attract even more dollars. And as we hopefully come back to you in the near future with that request for support, that's really part of that broader kind of focus. Yeah, so happy to answer any questions about any of that, or I can, if you like, I can dive into some of our goals for this year.
Let's see if we have any questions.
I'm good.
I'm interested in the goals.
I have one
Build
question.
BIQ.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
That's all. Just
My question is, do you see your focus expanding beyond buildings? I mean, when people think CORE, they think building efficiency and sustainability and residential support programs and stuff. Do you see your area of influence expanding beyond that?
Yeah, I think, really it's a great question. Really what I'm hearing from the strategic planning process right now, and we're really trying to take our cues from the community to make sure we're aligned. So what I'm hearing right now is that the community wants us to focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And we know right now that 60% of those emissions come from buildings, right? But we also know that transportation is a big part of that, aviation is a big part of that, the landfill is a big part of that. CORE doesn't right now have a deep bench when it comes to those other areas. Our real focus right now with our staffing and our expertise is really, frankly, around the built environment. There may be an opportunity for us to get involved in transportation. Specifically, we've been talking with Aspen Electric because they don't have the same kinds of incentive programs that they have at Holy Cross around installing EV chargers, for example. So they're really looking to CORE to play a role to do that. There's an incredible amount of money. I've been diving into this a little bit on the transportation side. There's an incredible amount of money coming out of the state and the federal government for EV chargers specifically and EV maintenance, all of that. Currently, my understanding is the state has around $53 million they're going to be throwing at building out the EV charger network statewide with a specific focus around the main transportation corridors and rural communities. So we certainly fit in there. So I think there may be a role to play, but I kind of hesitate on giving you a more definitive answer until we get more clarity out of the strategic planning.
I understand that.
Yep.
Okay, and Kelly, you want to hear a couple of things about their plans for this year?
Yeah, well, I think you've touched on some of it. I guess my personal hope would be that CORE is well positioned to take advantage of the infrastructure funding. And I'm just curious as to, if the strategic plan will address that and how you envision sort of that coming out.
Yeah, thank you for that, because that's definitely what I'm laser focused on. I actually just went down to Denver last week, spent an afternoon at the Colorado Energy Office to establish relationships there, because a lot of this money coming out of most of the money that's coming out of the Inflation Reduction Act is going to get funneled either through the Department of Energy or the EPA. There was an article yesterday, and I won't get too wonky on this, I promise, but there was an article yesterday in the New York Times, which a lot of us already knew, that the EPA had been hollowed out by the previous administration. And so it's not really well positioned to manage all this money that's funneling through. And it's been a real struggle on that side. But in either case, whether it's coming out of DOE or EPA, a lot of that money is going to get funneled through the state energy offices. And we're very fortunate to have a very robust Colorado Energy Office, which is still, frankly, trying to process a lot of the money that came out from past administrations. So this is just going to get piled on top. So my goal is to try to position us as a trusted partner of the Colorado Energy Office so that we can try to get as much of this outside money to come into our communities as possible. So yeah, I think that's really been the focus too of all of our modernization efforts at CORE over the last year. We've made a lot of improvements to our governance structure. We've overhauled our organizational structure. We're developing the strategic plan, brought in new leadership, brought in new staff, and it's all really been oriented so that we can take advantage of this opportunity, because it really is historic. And I see it really as an incredible opportunity for us to 10x everything that we've done before. And, you know, as excited as I am about the progress, and this, I'm going to riff a little bit off your question if that's okay, but as excited as I am about the progress that we made over the last year, I also realize we still have a heavy lift in front of us. We have 6 years and 341 days to reach our greenhouse gas emission reduction goal, which is cutting our greenhouse gas emissions by half. And so we have a long way to go, a lot of work to do. And so I think hopefully some of this IRA money, if we're positioned to bring it in, it can help us really try to ramp up and get this work done.
Thank you. Patty?
Just real quick, Northwest Colorado Council of Governments just hired a regional grant navigator.
Yes.
It's a full-time position, so that might be another opportunity to tag into them, which I sit on their board, to look at specific grants that might be helpful to bring into Pickens County for issues related to CORE and funding.
Thank you for that.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, I've been talking with Northwest COG as well.
The Energy Management Department.
Exactly. Yeah. And my understanding of that position, I brought this up when I was down in Denver with the Colorado Energy Office last week. That position is really, as I understand it, is really about trying to identify and disseminate the information around these grants, but not actually apply for them.
Right, but
Yeah.
it's a good search engine for us. So
It'll be
things that
amazing.
we're missing that we don't even know that we should be applying for. So I think it's a good place to start. As far as writing the grants, that's another step. But we got to figure out where they are first.
I know, for
But
sure.
yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
And
I
I'll push
appreciate
that forward. I have a meeting on Thursday.
it. Okay, great.
COG.
Thank you.
Anything else for Dallas?
No,
Well,
but
thank
thanks
you
for
so
the
much.
update.
Okay,
Really
thanks, guys. I
appreciate
really
it. Nice
appreciate
to
your
see you.
time. Nice to see you all too.
Hopefully we'll see you
Cheers,
soon.
thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, everyone.
So honestly, John and Kara, I'm a little confused about the next thing because it doesn't say anything except introducing Pano. There's no like
It's an overview.
introduction to that.
Well, I might invite our guest from the Aspen Fire Protection District. We have Rick Ballantyne here, and it is a request through the fire district for county funding to support the Pano AI system, which is a camera-based system that the board had authorized be placed on our communications towers. That was tested out for a year. When that request originally came into the board requested additional information be brought forward before you make a decision on that funding request.
Okay.
So, Rick, can I turn it over to you? Sorry about that.
It's okay. I just thought we already had that introduction. That was like,
No, we had questions about other funding partners
Yeah.
and funding, so that's why we asked Rick
which
to
is
come
not
back.
what this looks like. That's why I'm confused.
Oh,
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Thank you
Rick.
so much for
And
coming.
we do have on the line some representatives from Pano AI, which they should be online. There'd be Jeff Krager's online with Pickens County, Kat's online for us, Arvin's Satyam is also. They're all part of this. presentation. I know they have
Kylie Urban is via Ski.
and Kylie Urban, she's with Skiko as well. And Bo Jones is with Holy Cross. Sorry about that.
Promotions are good.
Everybody got promoted today.
So first of all, I just want to tell everybody.
Welcome.
Tell everybody
Great to be
thanks.
here.
Tell everybody, tell the board thank you for having us. You guys remember, it was a couple of years ago now that we came to you. We wanted to put some of these, it was a pilot project at the time. The last 2 years been a pilot project with Pano AI, and we've tested those out over the last couple of years. And I just want to give you guys an update, because we said we would, of where we are, maybe where Arvin and Kat are online. They'll give you a little update of where Pano AI is today, and any other questions or information you need, happy to share it with you.
Okay.
So if it's okay, I'll turn it over to Arvin or Kat to kind of give their, some of the slide deck that they have to show you guys.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 second, Arvin, I forgot, this is Allie Hager. She's also with Aspen Fire. She's our Director of Wildfire Resilience in our department, so sorry about that.
That's
Welcome.
Just fine. Thanks.
No worries at all. Chief Valentine, thank you for the introduction, and commissioners, it's great to be back. I think we're excited to be back here for the third time. I know we started this journey in 2021. I was listening to the earlier speakers around leadership and really starting this and providing a pilot and a platform for innovation. And I just want to thank the commissioners in Aspen, Chief Valentine, and others, because a few years ago we saw the intensifying fire risk, and you're one of the first regions to move. And I'm excited to share that at the end of last year, we ended up scaling to 6 states in the US. We're also deployed in Australia. And really a lot of that journey started with you guys. And what we wanted to do as part of this session was really share with you how our journey has evolved. The solution's absolutely been matured, and we're going to highlight some of the case studies that we've seen specifically in the state of Colorado. We've been expanding to a number of notable locations, including Boulder. We've also deployed in Vail and Beaver Creek. And Kat, if you don't mind just going back to the slide here, what I wanted to highlight, as it relates to additional partners, we really envisaged a solution which is focused on actionable intelligence. So we know wildfire threat is intensifying, and we know many stakeholders are involved. And really what we're trying to do is provide early visibility to wildfire threats, and really provide that to multiple stakeholders, whether that be city, county, whether that be state-based agencies. And then for utility stakeholders, we're also providing visibility of wildfire threats relative to where the assets are, so they're much better informed in terms of how to keep the grid on. And over time, one of the questions we had from the commissioners last year is, how would this benefit insurance? And we've been doing a bunch of work with the insurance stakeholders to really highlight the value of areas where this has been deployed, how that's actually helping the fire authorities and first responders be able to get to incidents faster. So the 6 states that were up are Colorado, Montana, Idaho, so states that kind of resemble many of the environmental and the terrain conditions, but also on the West Coast, starting off with California, Oregon, and Washington. And I think being able to train the artificial intelligence and really understand the environment is also a key part of the journey that we've gone through. Now, in terms of what we've seen in your environment, the idea of fire season, I think, is well and truly, we've really moved past that, and we're really looking at fire years. And I think a year and a bit ago, the #1 story was the Marshall Fire in Boulder. There was snow on the ground, and 1,134 homes, unfortunately, got impacted. And so what we really want to do is provide that visibility through that. And we're really looking at that as something that provides this, winds pick up, even if there is snow on the ground, how do we provide that visibility? And I think a lot of what we're seeing is how the technology is being used for operational decision making. And one other thing that I think really came out from a leadership standpoint is how the technology has been used for safer prescribed burning, which is a really important practice of forest management. And I think in Aspen last year with the Hunter Creek burn, and I'll let Kat speak to this later on, But I think there was a lot of learnings that we were able to share with NIFC at a national level of how these type of technologies could really improve that. And when it comes to early detection, we saw this with Chief Morgan last year at a wildfire summit. One of the key things is if you're getting early notification, do you have the resources to go and accelerate the response? So I think one of the evolving theses that we're seeing from fire authorities is as you see more extreme weather, you're seeing larger incidents. And in order to get to those larger incidents, more boots on the ground, more planes is a way to do it. But the technology provides you the visibility early on to really go and drive that rapid initial attack. And what we heard from Chief Miller in the Center of Excellence is over the last couple of years, Colorado has been investing in making sure that they have the fleet of aircrafts to really drive this rapid initial attack. And part of what our technology does is we're able to identify fire starts faster. And if that happens to be an incident that is spreading very quickly, now you have a much better chance of being able to call in aerial dispatch and get engines out there much faster. So it really ties into that strategy that we're seeing at the state level. And I think many of you have seen the overall solution, but I just want to touch on this. Cameras are just one part of the solution. What we really see in terms of the life cycle is being able to detect incidents quickly. We do this with our cameras and then really leveraging artificial intelligence to detect smoke. But the other thing that we also do is pull in data from satellites. We're also listening into 911 alerts and Twitter to really try and understand. And so for us, we're getting visibility through Urban Alerts, PulsePoint, and others. So if there is a call in, being able to zoom in and really provide that intelligence, that allows the fire authorities and others to really think about how to size up the response to that, but also learn from that over time. So it compresses the time to confirm an incident and then being able to disseminate, being able to get resources to that quickly. Chief Valentine, I know one of the things you've mentioned was the mutual aid agreements that are in place. And there's been incidents where you've been able to share it with neighboring fire agency, with neighboring departments, but also incidents that may have started there that you've been able to pick up here and being able to send that. And I think it really speaks to that. And that kind of comes to that network effects of how do we expand this so that we have visibility to the overall environment? Because there could be incidents that start away from you that may be coming towards you with high rate of spread winds and things like that. And the solution itself really ties in 4 key elements. And for us as a company, these are things that we want to tie in and really provide that actionable intelligence. So we're providing ultra high definition cameras. We have 2 of them. We'll show you a quick video after this of one of the ones that are deployed and on your comms towers. We stitched that together to create a full 360-degree panorama. One of the questions we got asked early on is, how's this different? How's this different from what's out there? We heard from many of the stakeholders when we were developing this that, if you just have cameras that are focused in one direction and fire starts behind you, you're gonna miss that. So we spent a lot of time really imagining a solution where you get a full 360-degree panorama. We then apply a smoke detection algorithm to be able to detect smoke as quickly as it emerges. The next thing that we also do is, sometimes it may not be smoke. It could be a dust cloud. It could be a farmer that's going down a hill and it's a dust cloud that gets picked up, or geysers. And so what we have is a human intelligence center that's quickly trying to learn about these incidents. And our goal is to try and reduce the false positives, reduce the noise. So when it gets sent out to stakeholders, there's much higher confidence that these are incidents that need to be responded to. And again, this is a hard problem because being able to detect smoke when there's snow, when there's clouds, so we continuously improve the solution with that. But the Human Intelligence Center really adds an additional element to it. And then the 4th piece is tying all of this together and really providing map functionality, being able to provide additional overlays. So that gives stakeholders visibility to where is it, how do they get there, where is it relative to asset overlays, where is it leveraged relative to boundaries, properties, et cetera.
Okay, well, thank you. Rick, do you want to talk about your level of confidence in this?
Yeah, I'm happy
And
to.
anything else you want to?
I think he had a little bit. Arvin, are you finished? You have a couple more things to go through.
I did, so.
Oh, sorry about that.
If we can just, no worries at all, no worries at all. So this is a quick video that highlights the cameras that are sitting on top of the towers. You see there's 2 of them. They do a full 360-degree rotation each minute. We use that to stitch together and really create a panorama each time. And if we move to the next slide.
Where was that one located?
Williams.
That's Williams? Okay, I didn't see that.
And the next thing that we do is we stitch that 360-degree panorama, and the AI engine is really looking for smoke. And it's looking for smoke as it emerges. And when we first started this, a lot of what we trained the system on was California, much more of the California type environment, the West Coast. And we went through a lot of interesting learnings in the first year. And I'm happy to report that we've been training the system last year with your environment as well. And now we're able to pick up smoke as quickly as it's emerging with snow on the ground, with clouds in the horizon. So I think this is where being able to deploy in environments that resemble yours. And we're also up in Big Sky. I mentioned Vail, Beaver Creek, Boulder, Eldora. That's really helping the environment. That's really helping the AI model detect smoke in your kind of environmental conditions. And how does this play out when it comes to an incident? How do we really take that to accelerate response? This was an incident in Montana. We picked it up 13 miles away from the town of Big Sky, which is down below in the valley. So they would not have had visibility to this. And so it was called in. We actually notified exactly at the same time. But there were a couple of things that really helped the operational response. The fire authorities were able to zoom in and help navigate with the map functionality to get there, which normally is tricky with the back roads. But they also saw that it was a high rate of spread fire, and they sent it over to Bozeman to accelerate aerial dispatch. So this is a good example of where an incident gets picked up out away from town, and you can accelerate aerial dispatch, and that allows you to contain it. And this was able to be contained in 74 acres. And these are incidents in the past that have spread into much larger incidents. With that, I'll hand it over to Kat, who leads our government side, who spent a lot of time in the fire, to walk through just the last part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Arvin. So again, thank you all for having us here today. And to piggyback off of the Shedhorn fire, and what Arvin said about how it's no longer a fire season, it's a fire year. Just about a month ago, Boulder again had another incident, the Sunshine Sanitas fire on December 19th. And what happened was through our 3-station deployment, we were able to see the smoke in the first moments from more than one location. And what then happens is you're able to triangulate the exact location of the incident. And from here, Boulder was able to display the incident in dispatch for monitoring the ongoing situation, but they were also able to use the system to understand what areas needed to be evacuated, which structures were at risk, which water resources were in relation to the incident itself, and which apparatus did they need to send, and how did they need to send them to get there safely. So improved safety and kept this fire small. And again, as Arvin pointed out, what I was going to play here is the Hunter Creek fire that Chief Valentine and his team conducted in conjunction with the BLM as well as the Forest Service. It was a large fire, a prescribed fire, that the window for this happened to fall on a Friday. They used aerial ignition as well as 70+ people. And because it was a Friday, they did have limited resources. And so they used the system not only to monitor it during the actual day, but they used it to monitor it over the weekend. They also used this to educate the community of what they were doing and why it was important, as well as using it to keep firefighters safe so that they could monitor the smoke conditions, making sure that they were staying within prescription. As you can see, it was a really large burn, and they wanted to do it safely. And because of the network effect that we have in Aspen, they were not only able to see this from one camera, but 4 cameras, again, giving them 4 really good vantage points of what was going on so that they could do this burn well and do it safely. And then over the weekend, they didn't necessarily have, they didn't want to send out crews if they didn't need to. And so they used our artificial intelligence to monitor any kind of flare up. And first responders were able to look at that and determine, is that flare up within a safe interior, or was it near the line where they needed to send crews? So really reducing resources, mitigating safety, and then doing what they could with the resources that they did have. And so not only are we deployed in Pickens County, but we're also deployed in various locations across the state. Wanted to highlight our partnerships with Boulder. They're voting very soon to expand that network as well. We're deployed in Roaring Fork. We're deployed in Vail, Beaver Creek. And I'm really excited to share that we just received commitment from Telluride that we're going to be deploying 4 more stations there, as well as the 4-station deployment with Core Energy. And to piggyback off of this, we realized that while these independent investments are really important to the communities, there's outlying areas that are covered by the state, and I'm not sure who's seen the Senate Bill 23, but that's being talked about right now, where there's a statewide investment that's looking at cameras and AI. And the Senate committee meeting is meeting on Thursday, where I'll be representing to promote the investment from a statewide level. And what the state will be looking at is, if they move forward with this, how can they piggyback and expand existing networks that we currently have? And Arvin, I'll pass it back to you to discuss insurance.
Can I
Sounds
just?
good.
Patty?
Yeah,
Please.
I think this information is great, but I really wanted to focus on funding, so I hope we have time for funding, because I think that was the key purpose for me anyway, to have this discussion. I mean, I think Pano is great. I think it's, it's valuable. But so I just want to make sure we have time for that discussion.
Sure.
Do you want to skip ahead to the first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with that in mind, Kat, why don't I hand it over to you on this?
Okay, great. So for your question, just jumping to what we're looking for is, we have the 4 stations that are covering Aspen Fire Protection District. That included with that is the artificial intelligence, the fully staffed intelligence center, the web interface where you can have multiple users using the system at once. And then from there, first responders are really gaining tactical intelligence to improve firefighter safety, to gain the intelligence they need to keep fires small. And then they're also using it in what we call the off season, even though we see it as a fire year, for monitoring and controlling prescribed fires. And then protecting the community, making sure that there's education around what we're doing, whether it be prescribed fire or managing an active wildfire. And then from there, from this commercial agreement, you're really looking for safer, more faster and effective response. You're showing that Pickens County and Aspen Fire and the city are investing in something that's being proactive versus reactive when there's a wildfire, and just the thought leadership around being involved in something innovative with tech and forward thinking. And so,
Kat,
yep.
I was just going to say, it might be useful just to put up the slide on the Western states and how the thought leadership is important in terms of helping promote these type of technologies over time. And I just want to thank the stakeholders locally, Chief Valentine, yourself, Jake Anderson, Jeff Kruger, and a number of others that have really helped on this, because you're not only helping promote these type of technologies, but giving us a lot of operational feedback. And I think what it's doing is helping really drive more innovation in this space, not only at a local level, but at a state and a national level. And we also mentioned this when we were in Australia at the end of last year. And go ahead, Kat, on the numbers.
So as far as an investment goes, we're looking to cover the 4 stations, as well as look at a multi-year agreement moving into 2024. And it would be a $120,000 investment with a 3-way split between Aspen Fire Department, the city, and Pickens County. And one of the questions that I got asked that I just want to address too is, how can we have a sole source jurisdiction for this, or justification? And to be very clear, Pano is a complete turnkey solution that includes everything from start to finish: installation, maintenance, software, hardware, fully staffed intelligence center and all the PR and support. And so we've been able to do sole source justification with multiple customers, some to highlight are Boulder County, Big Sky, and then we've been able to sole source with 2 U.S. Forest Service locations as well. I'll come back to this one and see if there's any questions.
So if we to agree to the 40K, is this going to be, will you come back to us every year, or is this going to cover multiple years commitment?
Yeah, Commissioner, this is for just this year.
That's all this, just for this year?
Correct, yeah.
And then we'll reassess next year?
Correct. I'm actually in, I think we might have mentioned Aspen, City of Aspen has agreed to this arrangement as well. They're also going to help fund this for this year. We're actually talking to them about potentially doing a MOU, maybe a multi-year that can say you only do 1 a year at a time without an MOU or an IGA. So we're in discussion with them about doing a multi-year agreement with us, just because it's something that we see is not going to, wildfire season is not going to get any shorter or better. It's probably going to get longer and worse. So something we see as a long-term solution, and we're hoping that we can create this partnership. I know, and I know Jeff Kruger's on the phone too. I think some questions when we said we'd come back. I think Patty, you had mentioned at the time, you know, it's really takes very little staff time, and I think Jeff was going to speak to that a little bit to make sure that we haven't reneged on our promise. Jeff, can you speak to that?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Jeff Kruger, Pickens County Telecommunications Manager. Yeah, I can wholeheartedly agree with Rick that staff time on this has been very minimal. We are providing the backhaul for these cameras. So they're mounted on 4 telecommunications sites today. We have a very robust microwave backhaul network that has redundancy at each one of these sites. So it's not only important to collect the data, it's very important to get it back for analysis. And so we're very happy to support that, and really appreciate the relationship we've had both with Rick Ballantine as well as Pano AI. And yeah, from my point of view, it's just very minimal staff time to support this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Patty?
Yeah, again, I support the use of this system. I think whatever we need to do to detect wildfires early, we know it saves, period. My concern is, and I don't have a problem myself moving forward with funding for next year, I think we need to be looking, since this does provide a service valley-wide, I think hopefully in the next year we can be looking at other partners to help with the funding of this to move it forward in years to come. But I think we need, I don't want to stop it for this next year and then restart it, you know, in the next following year. I think I'd like to move it forward with the agreement that we'll be looking at and helping to work on partners for funding.
Thanks, Patty. Yeah, and I know we do have someone from SKICO online. We're talking to them a little bit of it. We're just now starting discussions. My goal isn't just to have these 4 cameras. My goal would be getting more cameras up valley and down valley as well. Also, Holy Cross, they've agreed. They've got some cameras up now. So I see what we did, and with your help with last year or 2 years ago, is really, we're really been innovating and cutting a new path here. And now, as you can see, we've got Boulder and Eagle County and Telluride, a lot of other departments now getting on board because they can see the value of it. And not just because it's early detection, but because of the things you can do before and afterwards.
Right. Thank you.
So we're hoping that we'll get some more funding partners for next year. I just want to note that this year they have given us a very large discount from they would like to get $40,000 per camera. This year I said we just can't guarantee that. So currently with your help we would get them to 120. And again, we're still looking for additional funding partners, whether it's SKICO or like we did the first year where it's personal, property owners helping out with it. But we are hoping to get this. I want to expand the network.
Well, I'd like to reach out to the other fire districts, since it does service the valley, and I think it's, and if we can help with that, we'll be more than happy to. Well, I would. I don't know about the rest of the board, but thanks, Nancy.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I was wondering about how much overlap there is from the sunlight camera and the red tables one. That I think that would be beneficial to us up here in terms of triangulation of a fire, but how far do the cameras actually reach? Like the one at Sunlight, probably overlaps somewhat with what it can see and what maybe the Williams Hill one is doing.
Yeah, I haven't really looked personally at the sunlight, or how it overlaps ours, but certainly it would. And we are certainly in contact. If we see a fire started in Roaring Fire District or whatever, their battalion chiefs at Roaring Fire are also they're also monitoring this as well. So we share the information with them. As far as sunlight goes, Arvin, does that overlap any of our cameras? Do you know?
It's close, Chief. I think one of the challenges with the mountains is there's some obstruction through that. And Commissioner, your question is how far can they see on a clear day with no obstruction? You can see 20 plus miles. But in the mountainous areas, the challenge is really getting those sight lines. So what it's going to do, we haven't seen as much of the cross bearings for triangulation, but it's close. So if there's incidents that are picked up there, we will certainly notify Chief Valentine as well as Roaring Fork Fire Department so that they're able to action it.
Right.
Okay. Also, I know that the Carbondale Fire District was, during the high fire season 2 summers ago, they have somebody driving up the Crystal every day.
Yeah, they actually.
And maybe having the pano, maybe that would be a huge labor saving and cost saving thing in terms of human labor to not have to drive everywhere every day trying to spot, a campfire that wasn't put out or whatever kind of things they're looking for. So that could be a cost savings, even though we're paying for the pano, might save money elsewhere.
It's certainly up to each individual district to recognize and to do their math on what that would save them or not. I personally believe it's been a great asset for our district, our homeowners, and in the surrounding area, including the Forest Service as well. So I believe it's a great asset. That's it's sort of like, I think we mentioned once before, like having a smoke detector in your house. Just because you don't use it every day doesn't mean you get rid of it. No, I think this has been a big asset for our district for sure. And I know one other question came up is, who is the new sheriff supporting us? I think Michael is here. Sheriff Buglioni is here. I believe he's here in support of this project. In case you want to talk to him, he's actually here, and also Jake Anderson, our deputy chief, who's been greatly involved in this as well.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to come up and give your support, Michael? Or not?
And look, I think this is his first meeting, isn't it?
Yeah, welcome you.
First time, welcome. Good afternoon, thank you. Yes, I was in full support of Pano AI when I first heard about it when I was on the fire department board. Like you said, that early detection is going to help all of us. I think it's well worth it. It's going to help. Hopefully it doesn't have to help us, but it's there. So yes, I'm in full support of it.
That's great.
Thank you.
So are we looking for a thumbs up on this or anything like that, John?
Yeah, the board wanted to have this opportunity to have a work session before authorizing funding going forward.
Greg?
I'm certainly supportive of this. I have to liken it to the fire towers. You think, did individual districts set up fire towers around the forests in the United States?
The old days when they used to live up on the hill.
Or was it the feds? Was it the Forest Service who put them up? And so the question is Pano actually going after the agencies which control these vast swaths of national forests and public lands? And until they do, I think it's going to be up to us to try to help jumpstart it. But I would, it's almost an equity issue. If we can afford Pano, but the next county over can't, and the forest catches fire, you just start wondering. We're saving our homes, but we can't do it for everybody. It really ought to be a national effort with the Forest Service and BLM. And so my question is to Pano is, how are your efforts going to make this ubiquitous on a federal level?
That's a good question, Greg.
And Commissioner, thank you for that question. Absolutely. I mean, last year we've run multiple pilots with the forest, with NIPSI in particular, with the Forest Service, and they are looking at these type of technologies. And we know that especially a lot of the federal lands, which are going to be less urban, they're looking at these types of solutions. And I think for us, what we're doing is really going through that education. And as you know, some of this is going to take time, but certainly they are looking at these type of capabilities.
And as Kat said, there's also a bill in front of our State House, SB 23-32, that is looking at some funding to help doing more cameras more widespread and throughout the forest.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that seems like the obvious next step.
Yeah. And I don't know if you, as I mentioned, Holy Cross is online too. I don't know if you guys have any questions for him. They did deploy several cameras this last fall as well. I don't know if you have any questions for him. He can probably help with that as well.
Do we have any more questions?
I'm good.
I'm certainly in support of this. I mean,
thumbs
we have to do something about fires, and this seems like a really great place to be going, where it's using correct technology over large distances.
Well, I'm certainly very proud of the fact that we were the innovators in Colorado, where our district, county came together. We partnered on this program, which is now going statewide. And I feel very proud of the fact that we, and not just me, the fire department, we collectively were innovative on this and kind of getting the ball moving in Colorado. Mm-hmm. One question did come up, Patty, I want to answer if it's okay, was something came up about funding and about why did we select Pano AI? We did look at several other companies at the time. Pano AI, I know Kat brought it up in her presentation, but was the only one that we felt could really do what we wanted to do. There was nobody else who were doing what they're doing. And part of that is the Intelligence Center in California. They pick this stuff up. They look at it. What destroys or what hurts a lot of companies, I'm told, and what my experience is false positives. False positives will just kill you.
Yeah.
In terms of, especially if you're limited manpower, whether it's our fire department or dispatch centers or whatever, false positives are just time killer. And we feel this one, we've helped really train the AI for our district and for our area. That's what's made us most valuable and why we weren't able to go to an RFP.
Well, and I think, speaking from California myself and living through wildfires my whole life, that I still, in California in general, I think the term intelligence centers in California is an interesting term.
Can I ask say another quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, I know there's been some concern that, because we're a governmental agency and we have this one, we're working with you and you did the heavy lifting to choose Pano, which is something I'm completely fine with. But the other thing is, I remember Jerry Hosier, had something to do with bringing this here and helping fund the initial startup of it here locally. And I want to say I really appreciate that. If somebody in the community has the ability to do something like that for the community, I want to make sure we're welcoming of efforts like that, because every now and then you get somebody who has insight or ability to bring a technology or an idea along that might not catch anywhere else, but they can make it happen. And I just wanted to say, we want to thank Jerry for his original thought about doing something here. And I don't even know how it started, whether you took it to him or he took it to you or what, but the fact that he was able to do it and he decided that this would be something worth investing of himself in, to me is a complete win for the community. And we, of course, as a governmental agency, have to be careful to make sure we're not creating unfair competition or something like that. But I don't think I see that in this. This seems like such a unique technology. It's not like we can go down to Walmart or someplace and buy the equipment ourselves. So that's my little speech on it. John wants to correct me.
Just to be a wet blanket, because that's what bureaucrats do sometimes. I would note, yeah, and it's good for fire, right? I would note that in all of these spaces there tends to be a lot of change and progress, and depending on how the pricing structure goes, partners, staff may be recommending to the board to question the sole source justification in the future. And I want to say that while our Pano partners are on the call for us, and also for the board, that's what gets you in trouble with sole source. So we'll be continuing to monitor that with the fire district and making those recommendations as appropriate as to whether there's been change in that space and whether the pricing structure continues to seem appropriate.
Thank you. You finished what that I had intended to say.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, that wasn't what I intended to say, is that as the environment changes and the technology emerges, other players come in. Look at, it's like Tesla was the only EV there for a while. Now we've got 20 different companies, and the prices are coming down and options are getting better. So my guess is PANA will probably have competition, and we look forward to seeing that, and hopefully they will too.
Commissioner Postman, I just want to tell you thanks for putting a shout out to Jerry. I'd asked him to be online. I'm not sure if he made it on live, but he was in California in case he wanted to. It looks like not. So
We are 15 minutes behind. So if we're all in approval, it sounds like, nobody's worried about it right now. So thank you guys very much. Thanks,
Thank
Rick.
you.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you so much. Nice to have you. Thank you, Pano.
Good to see you,
Thanks,
Ally.
guys. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, break.
So we're due back now to hear about beavers, but we'll take a quick break if you guys don't
thank you
mind.
guys very much.
Thank you, Rick. So it's a 10-minute break here.
It'll
Thank you. Welcome back to the Tuesday, January 4th, 24th work session of the BOCC. We are now going to hear about beavers. Take it away, beaver ladies.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lisa McDonald. I'm with the Healthy Rivers program. And joining me today is Lisa Tasker with our program and Clay Ramey with the U.S. Forest Service. So we have a pretty cool and exciting project to bring to you today. We included this in our 2023 budget line items. The project is a $50,000 project in collaboration with the Forest Service. It is step one, and it's titled Beaver Inventory. Besides all the big language here on the agenda item title. And I think today we hope to present to you and get direction from the BOCC to move forward with the project through a collaborative agreement with the Forest Service, which will need a formal resolution adoption process. So that's kind of what we're looking to do today. I'm going to let Lisa take it over. She has spearheaded this project and done an amazing amount of work along with Clay to get this rolling. So we're really excited to bring it to you today, and we hope you have fun hearing about it. So I'll let Lisa take it from here.
Yeah, and I'm really going to let Clay do all the speaking. No, because he's got a really great presentation that covers quite a bit of sort of the goals for the summer and a little background on how we got to where we are. So I think that's really going to be the most exciting part of talking about everybody's favorite 30-pound rodent today. So yeah, Clay and I met, I don't know, maybe it was the early part of last summer or late spring, I can't remember, and we started talking about you know, what was possible as far as the Forest Service was concerned regarding beavers and kind of what had been covered so far. And it ended up, as often happens, a lot of the research and background work on beavers has not been able to be funded. So it was like an aha moment, because the Healthy Rivers program, obviously, this is right, you know, up our alley. And so we ended up getting to talking about the possibility of, Clay's going to tell you, sending 2 interns out in a big pickup truck and doing as big an inventory as they possibly can do. He's going to cover a little bit about more of the specifics of that in the Roaring Fork Valley, White River National Forest, headwaters regions, higher elevation areas that are obviously, you know, less susceptible to sort of water rights issues and those kinds of pinch points that you can bump into, which is a whole nother discussion. But anyway, yeah, so Clay's going to go ahead and talk to you about this. And you saw in the AIS how, you know, there's so many benefits to beavers, and this has been a 20-year-long sort of process that's been happening in this state, but especially in the Northwest, as far as beavers are concerned. They're really ahead of the curve in understanding just how beneficial they were and how degraded their systems were since they had been removed. And that is a whole story, and I quickly brought this book. Probably some of you have seen this book, but this really did set off a lot of conversations within the ecology world, actually. Ben Goldfarb, and he was actually here last summer or spring or last winter and spoke about his book, because he now lives in Salida. Is it Salida? I think he lives in Salida. He moved from the East Coast to Colorado. Why not? But anyway, so I highly recommend that book. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and let Clay go ahead and discuss what's going to happen this summer, because the most important thing, it turns out, is that before we could try and think about supporting beavers and even you know, moving beavers around or helping support beavers in any way, we really need to have some baseline information, and there really is not any baseline information, which is really interesting. So that is step number 1, and that's going to inform everything else that we do moving forward. And I expect this to be, you know, probably a multi-year process, and we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to just carefully go step by step, you know, as far as the funding and next actions, based on a lot on number one, step one, this inventory. So I'm going to let
Can I
Clay
just
take it
ask
away.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. On the back page of your AIS, under recommended BOCC actions, it says a collective agreement. Is that collaborative, or is that a new
No,
term?
that's what the Forest Service,
I've
their
never
actual
heard of that
agreement is
before.
called a collective agreement.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Never heard it.
Did you have your hand up, Greg?
And probably Clay and I'll probably have to point to the the administrative part of the Forest Service because that's really what we're going on. You guys will see that document. We've seen that document. We'll bring it probably to our next meeting.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'm Clay Ramey. I'm the fisheries biologist for the western half of White River National Forest. So I go from Independence Pass to Meeker. This is not the first time I've run through this presentation. I tend to get worse with repetition. So if there's something I'm belaboring, tell me to speed up or we can go back and
So you just need to go forward.
check that.
Yep, you can.
Yeah,
And
there we
if
go.
you get in trouble, just use these guys.
Okay.
Use escape.
Okay. So, the gist here, just for some context, beavers change their environment, and that's why they're useful to us and to the ecosystem. There we go. So, on the forest, for example, in some streams where beavers establish themselves, they'll retain sediment in streams. It can encourage stream bank stability and help fill in entrenched reaches, which is something that we see on the forest. When you have streams that the riparian area and the stream itself is kind of held together by riparian vegetation, if you eat all of that vegetation, the stream is unstable and it incisors. It erodes down into a gully, basically, which is not sort of hydrologically good news, nor does it make for good habitat. So, and beavers are a means to reverse that process because they kind of plug the stream rather than have it function as a ditch. You can alter the water volume and timing of water available. Obviously, we're in a snowmelt-driven ecosystem, and so when our snow runs off, it's gone. And so the beaver dams can help stall that water and meter it out over a longer period of time. We can, as they're holding that water in the stream channel, it can raise this water table locally, which will encourage the riparian vegetation that the beaver is utilizing in the first place, so it gets to be a sort of positive feedback loop there. And it can have some temperature effect. It can warm some water in the ponds, but it tends to make for cooler water below the dam. So when you have a dam, it's impounding water, it makes a pool, has a large surface area, absorbs a lot of sunlight, gets warm. However, the weight of all that water is pushing the water underneath the dam through the substrate of the stream, and so that water tends to come out cooler than it was when it went in because it's going underground.
I have a question about the thing you said just before that. About the vegetation around. So the beavers cut down the trees and homeowners get annoyed and everything, but you're saying that by diffusing the water over a larger area that they are then encouraging future tree and vegetation growth, so it's a wash?
As a rule, yeah.
Yeah,
They're
cool.
consuming vegetation to build the dams, but then they're storing water, raising the water table, which can make for more vegetation.
I get it. Thank you.
Yeah. But the beavers definitely, they will eat themselves out of house and home, sort of temporarily. So there's that. And these populations kind of turn over. You don't have necessarily a beaver complex that lasts indefinitely. It'll be there for 5 years, 10 years. And then the beavers die, the dams blow out, all that stuff down cuts again. So it's sort of cyclical. It'll come and go. But yeah, they're improving the habitat that they're exploiting by being there. Since I mentioned temperatures, this little chart on the top is just a random, I put stream thermometers in, I did 30-ish streams around my side of the forest every summer. and let them sit there and soak. And so this just happens to be one out of North Thompson Creek. But sort of my point of pointing this up there is that this period of record is only since 2015. It's not a great span of time. And temperatures are ticking up. There is an upward trend as we go. And I see this all over the forest, and even a lot of the streams up on this end of the valley are so high that they're very cold, but they're warming up. And they're cold enough that they still are plenty productive. They're great. But we have other streams that are already warm, and they're getting ever warmer. And that will not bode well for our native fish that live here. And in some streams, this one actually is not the case. The minimum temperature that I see every day is creeping up, which is not good.
This is up by Spring Gulcher.
It is, yeah, way up behind 4 Mile. At any rate, temperatures are certainly something that we want to pay attention to in this neck of the woods because our fish live in cold water. And beavers are just part of an intact watershed hydrologic system. And so,
quick question, just regarding last time Lisa was in, we had the conversation about the frying pan and water temperatures in the frying pan, and really as a fishing resource was part of my probing question to Rick LaFaro is this all about just creating a great fishery? So I know this. I'm going to ask the same question because I want to know, is the fish really the only indicator species you're concerned about? Or tell me what your perspective is on, like, taking care of the fish. Yeah, fishermen love that. I'm worried about plants and other animals as well. How do you frame that for non-fishermen?
as far as it relates to beavers or to temperatures?
Well,
or
I was thinking, is this all about just trying to maintain a fishery, or is there more to it?
Can I put it in Greg Bushman terms?
Interpret for you.
In terms of climate change, make this reduce invasive species, which we see as a result of climate change.
I'm more into the fish.
Okay. Well, I can tell you from the Forest Service side of things, we are to help maintain the habitat. So in this case, this is the physical environment. So the streams should not be eroding or sizing at a beyond background rate. We want sediment to go where it's supposed to go and not somewhere else. So we don't want to generate more of it or deposit it at other places. We want the physical ecosystem to be appropriate for the region. As it happens, Colorado River cutthroat trout are the only native trout on the forest. And so where they exist on the forest, the forest is also to manage the forest in such a way as to improve the probability of those fish persisting indefinitely. And the part of that we have influence over is on the habitat. So there's that. So there is a fish component. We're also supposed to keep streams of sufficient quality to maintain any fish that lives in there that's desirable. Whether it may or may not, which does not mean native. It means alive, and people can catch them.
A live fish.
So that would include our other sort of recreational species of trout also. And we, the forest provides opportunities for recreation to include fishing. But for the most part, or at least the way I do my job, that part is largely CPW's job in my view of things. So sort of crudely speaking, the feds are managing the land and CPW is managing the critters. And so they set rules on what you can catch and how you catch it and how many you keep. They stock fish. I don't do any of those things. So what I want to see on the forest are these intact stream and riparian ecosystems, which hopefully are benefiting the native fish, but there are other fish in there also, and yeah, they're fishable.
Another species.
Another plant
And,
species.
right, and and if you have this intact ecosystem, there's all manner of things. There's ducks sit on that thing, moose are in there, and I forget, you'd have to get a wildlife person, but
Yeah, it's amazing.
the percentage of the landscape that is riparian habitat is a small percentage.
Oh.
And the percent of the animals that use it is a very high percentage.
Well, plus the grasses and willows and cottonwoods and all of that.
There's lots of things down in there, and all of those are, fortunately, if you can create this system that's sort of physically intact, all this other diversity comes on. It does it on its own.
And it keeps the invasive species out.
And if you can keep
Right.
beavers being the ones that do all the work, it's quite remarkable. I mean, they it's one thing for us to do expensive restoration projects and that kind of thing, but the availability of beavers, hanging out in the area, available to come in and put in, beaver dams, that is a remarkable opportunity, and we don't want to miss that. We want to be able. That's the whole discussion, is that we want to be able to support them and hopefully even get into maybe some bigger discussions with even CPW eventually. Who knows? I mean, I think big usually, so on how they're managed, or some of these other pinch points. So one last thing is that, beavers can be considered keystone species just because of the kind of habitat that they do create and what they do to our river systems and our streams. And the most incredible thing in the water world, related to the water world, is, they obviously up the groundwater levels. I mean, the groundwater table just goes up immensely, and a stream is a gaining stream much longer than it's a losing stream when you have a lot of beaver dams along a stream. So it's a huge benefit to the water in a stream, period. Even though it looks like, initially, like when you build a reservoir, a human does, and they have to fill it, you've got less water downstream. So, but one thing about beaver dams is they're very leaky, and so they're always leaking, so there's always water moving through them. But yes, when they first build them, and occasionally, people freak out because they see there's big pond behind a beaver dam and they're not getting their water right anymore. Well, probably what would have happened anyway is the stream, like on, let's say, Woody Creek, probably would have been too low for them to be able to access water in their head gate anyhow. So there's a whole lot of conversations that can happen, and we also are going to be bringing in Matt Annabelle and Back 40 Stories, who works with us and who Francie is very familiar with at this point, to do a whole backside education piece, and really start to. So that's
Bring
going
him
to be.
into us.
Pardon?
Bring him in here to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're working.
Develop a program.
Yeah, we're
education
developing
piece.
a huge education piece. So that is in parallel with what Clay's doing. But I'm going to let Clay keep going.
Thank you. Thanks for the aside.
Did
but
that-
I appreciate that. Yeah.
At least
You're done now?
partially answer your question.
I'm also grateful that beavers really pay no attention to the rules. They pay no attention to what the
No.
Forest Service tells them or anybody
Or
else.
property
And
owners.
I
No.
admire them
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
That's why we like them so much.
And so this diagram is just another kind of a, schematic progression of how these incised channels develop over time. Beaver dams are not permanent. They're there for some period of time. They always blow out, and it's not, when we build things and the bridge falls down, like that's a failure. There's just no way around it. And luckily, these rules do not apply to beavers. And so failure is totally acceptable and normal. But so as time goes, they will create this larger, more connected watershed than what you have in this incised bit. Sort of the point of this picture is you'll notice along the back is a sheer bank that's on the order of 5 feet tall. And so this is a stream on the forest up above Rifle, up Coulter Mesa. It's a very small stream. It runs in a narrow valley. It's very dry up there. There's not a lot of water sources. It's had cows on it for 100 years, and the cows have a tendency to tromp up and down the valley, but because the valley's so narrow, that just the mechanical disturbance of cows walking around in there has been hard on the habitat. And so as a result, the stream is downcut. It's just eroded vertically. And so it's left a considerable portion of its banks are this sheer, 5-foot muddy drop. And we got a pair of beavers, courtesy of our local DWM, who literally rolled them out of the back of the pickup truck in about 2015-ish. And they spent the next 5 or so years. They built 30-some dams like this. They built a lot of them in the first 2 years. And so,
2 of them?
Yeah, they didn't stay 2 for long. But yeah, they started out 2. And they did, one of our, another employee on the force saw a bunch of, like a little line of kits run across the road from them. So they did reproduce at least once. And so this dam is something like 4 or 5 vertical feet tall. And each of these ponds caught meters of sediment in the first year they were there. So all of that, like train loads of sediment were coming down this creek. And this is a very small creek. And just eroding and eroding and eroding. And these beaver dams capture all that sediment, aggregate the material, and kind of fill this channel back in. And again, like Lisa was saying, like we can do this mechanically. For $200,000, I could rent a bunch of machines and we can go and do this on a half a mile of stream.
Up here it'd be like 2 million.
Yeah. It's always,
add a few zeros.
it gets spendy quick. But so when the beavers do this for us, it's better for everyone. And once the habitat is here, a lot of other pieces of the ecosystem benefit. I stole that, just bold-faced thievery from
Summit Post.
From the Summit Post. Look, I did at least give them that. This is another kind of a popular paper in the fish literature. They did this in Central Oregon in the John Day River. So this is on the order of 300 miles upstream from the ocean. So they have steelhead reproduce up here.
Fish.
And at this paper, the researchers put these BDAs, we'll talk about these beaver dam analogs, fake beaver dams. They put a bunch of them in a reach, and they compared the steelhead fry that were produced out of that reach versus the steelhead fry that were produced out of this very simple reach. And suffice to say, there were a lot more steelhead.
So you put in fake beaver dams? You mean
Yeah.
with broken down trees or with something else?
Posts and willows, yeah. Also, we'll get
They
to
built
a picture.
their own
of-
beaver
There's some
dams.
pictures.
Built their own beaver dams.
And that actually can attract beavers, building BDA, so you can, maybe Clay's gonna get that.
Yeah, and in this case, the actual beavers, they will glom onto these structures because it's a stable point.
Yeah.
And so the real beavers latched onto them and
They'll move in.
made them their
So you
own.
built the foundation, the beavers did the addition.
That's exactly right. And especially in some of these entrenched streams, it's hard to keep a dam there because it's the nature of being entrenched is it's functioning like a gutter. So when you put a lot of water in it, it doesn't get up and spread out and slow down on a floodplain. It just stays in this gutter, so it's very powerful. So it will blow beaver dams out. Well, a beaver will rebuild the dam, but he's not going to do it indefinitely. Where if you can go and put some posts in that provide an anchor, a foundation, if you will, the beavers will often take advantage of that.
So the John Day is a pretty big river compared to what we have here. So
It is.
Are these like dams going all the way across the John Day?
These would be way up in the headwaters. So this is not probably John Day proper, but up in the headwater reaches of it. And when I've told Lisa, now or certainly for the last 2 years, every time I see a PowerPoint presentation that has to do with beavers or fire, there's the obligatory fire photo. So I don't remember if this was Cameron Peak or where it was, but it's pretty obvious that saturated area around the beaver wetland is an oasis. And so, like, these pictures are a dime a dozen these
So it
days.
creates like a fire break.
It does. If it's long, if it's situated in such a way, it can certainly act as like a proper fire break. You may find that a fire won't cross a riparian area.
Yeah, and you wrote that it's a refuge for animals during a fire, which was pretty cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if a typical flowing river is like 1 or 2% of our state or riparian areas, a beaver population could probably actually make 100% increase in riparian terrain, right? They spread it out.
Yeah.
You've got a 16-foot wide river. The beavers are going to make it into a 50-foot wide, depending on the geography.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, can you measure that? Do you have a statistic that you share about what they can do to increase riparian areas on a large scale? Is there a number we can?
Is there a measure? After we have success.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't look at it at a big scale. I know there's another paper that I'm drawing a blank on, but at any rate, they tried to estimate like the area, like a riparian area over the whole West. The day before Europeans started trapping the beavers, and it was many millions of acres of saturated, wet riparian corridor. And then we killed virtually all of the beavers in 10 years, which is pretty astounding.
Turned them into Stetsons.
Turned them into Stetsons. And all those things incised and cut down through all that material. So we went in a decade-ish from a vast scale of riparian area to a fraction of that. And we're only, on the cusp of sort of turning that back around the other way. So fire stuff. So basically beavers they're kind of good for everything. If they would just settle all these streams, I'm out of a job. So these are just sort of standard entrenched kind of stream that we see on the forest. Luckily, we don't see many of them on the forest, but these are just two examples that I run across. And you can see there's no riparian corridor to speak of. There's just grass, which does not have a root system sufficient to hold the stream together. And a lot of these eroding banks. And as the stream cuts lower and lower and lower, it's dropping the water table. So the landscape on the outside of the stream is less able to support willow and cottonwood and things like that because the water table's falling. And so you get in like a negative feedback loop. The more erosive it is, the greater the incision, the more it dries the floodplain out, which reduces the veg, which makes it more erosive, etc. And beavers are a natural, something of an antidote to that. They do the opposite. So this is this beaver dam analog, and if they have other, aliases. But where you have material there, like this place, which obviously has a great many willows, you can punch some posts in the ground and stitch willow together, and that's it. It's kind of a very imprecise little piece of engineering. It's nice to have some elevations. Yeah. And the puns.
That would be a fun job.
Yeah.
That would be a really fun job.
We made it pretty far before the first pun. Well, it's not over yet.
No, there's still time.
I assure you. And so.
That would be so fun.
So when Lisa and I first talked, these were among the things that we were talking about. Like, hey, what if we want to do some, the board is maybe entertaining some pro-beaver kind of management actions. Maybe doing something like this would be something to entertain. I'm just finishing up paperwork to do a small, it's kind of a pilot project for me of building these on this stream up above Rifle. It's a very small stream. It's way up in no man's land. Nobody goes there. Nobody cares about it. And so it makes it a good place for me to, and importantly, it suffers, the things that it suffers from are exactly the kind of things that this kind of management should improve.
So you get to put on your boots and go out there and tromp around and make that?
Yes.
I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to go.
Yeah, it's going to be neat.
That's the best job.
And then we'll kind of watch it as time goes. And this is just.
Garfield County Commissioners to allow.
No, we have to ask permission to go to Garfield County.
Oh, I'm sure I think I might even sometimes.
We'll work on it.
This is just the opposite of a floodplain controlled system where the water's up and it's just running real hard. And so this is, again, I didn't even credit this individual here, but so you put this BDA in, and instead of getting, this,
instead of getting this incised, fire hose, it's spreading water out, slowing it down. It's putting nutrients on the floodplain. This has a variety of things going for it. And a real beaver dam built by an actual beaver would function in the same way. We're replicating a pile of sticks
So
and
that
rocks.
really is an analog. Okay, I see the vertical post.
It is, yeah. You can see it's rather neat and uniform.
So if you were to have introduced a beaver onto that stream, there's no guarantee it would have put the analog where you wanted it to.
Wow.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Although he would have done a better job.
Probably.
Look at
Yeah.
all the filters
Yeah,
of
for
water.
sure.
But you can steer them around a little bit, or it's my understanding. Like, I'd really rather have them up there. I don't really want them down here. Well, go put a bunch of posts where you want them, and they'll
come and work.
They'll go there.
The
Yeah.
beaver district.
Expand on it. Great.
Yeah.
So they're
I
like
mean, they're-
just
they're-
lazy enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
their whole goal is to have security, right? So they need to have a certain size pond, certain depth, so that they are not what Clay called. What did you call them the other day? Can you share that?
What's the beavers?
Yeah. What that are trying to go up. 30
Oh, the
feet.
chicken nuggets?
Yeah.
The chicken nuggets. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, because they're a very large piece of protein out there on a landscape, and that is full of predators. Thankfully, on the White River National Forest, we have kind of an intact system. So, but yes, so.
Mountain lions, coyotes,
Yeah.
bears.
Yeah. I
wolves.
think
Damn wolves.
any and all of those.
Yeah, wolves.
It's just
Two
opportunistic.
humans who discover they're kind of greasy.
Yeah.
Have you eaten a beaver? Then you
Never,
know.
but I know
Okay.
people who have.
Let's not go there.
And we have, I talked to a guy in Meeker this summer who has a piece of private land, and just immediately upstream is the forest. And it has eras of beavers that come and go through there. And he told me he had noticed that he thought it was a little short of beavers. And he found somebody in the Front Range that relocates beavers. And he said, hey, I have this habitat. I don't think there's any beavers here at the moment. Like, I'd really like to get some. And she said, oh, well, that's what we do here. Where do you live? And he said, oh, at Meeker. And she said, well, I don't take beavers on the West Slope because they're all dead in a year. They all get eaten. And
By whom?
something toothy,
I was
toothy
wondering
things.
if they're
Some toothy things.
I'm sure they're shot by some people who don't want them in their irrigation system.
They are, although anecdotally in my small sample size, a lot of the rancher crowd are pro beaver, or at least they are up on the forest. Now whether they are down on their ranch in the valley floor is another matter.
right, Francie.
But up on the forest,
Exactly.
people are real keen to have them. And I forgot sort of another benefit of all this is we have obligations to provide grazing land to the public. And when stream conditions degrade, this may or may not be due to grazing, the range permittees are the ones that take cuts. They start late, leave early, they can have fewer animals, they just, they have bureaucrats breathing down their necks. And when the stream is intact physically, for one thing, it's much more resilient. If you have an intact system and you burn one hole in the middle, it's fine. Nothing goes anywhere because the system is strong. And when you have this incised, this poor conditioned system, it's not resilient at all. It shows every hoof print and every problem. So it actually behooves some other forest users that these streams be intact as possible. So Lisa and I met. She talked about entertaining some pro beaver work, and what I told her, or one of my my first thought was that I have no data about beavers. So if Lisa said, okay, well, let's buy $50,000 worth of beaver dam analogs and put them in. If someone said, are there not enough beavers in Thompson Creek? I couldn't answer that question. I have no idea. I mean, I see some. I see places where they're not. I don't know. We don't have any of those data. And so that applies to how many we have. Do we not have enough? Who knows? Could we have more? What's the habitat like? Are we missing beavers because they died 100 years ago? Are we missing beavers because they died yesterday? Are we missing beavers because there's not enough food? We don't know any of that stuff. And so my suggestion was that the first, application of money that I would have a use for is to field a couple seasonals who can just go and basically do this inventory. And this is one of the things that I would do anyway, but I don't have time. As a rule, I'll hire one seasonal or sometimes two in the summer, and we put out thermometers in the spring, we shock fish, we look for toads, we catch a bunch of bugs, we pull our thermometers.
The job
and it
sounds
snows.
better all the time.
Done.
I'm
So-
there.
I'm beginning to understand Forest Service jobs a little better and why
Yeah,
people want them.
that's why we do all this. And so I don't have time. I cover 1.1 million acres, so like I just can't go. I can't go everywhere. But with some money, I can hire seasonals and put them in a truck and line them out on what to do here and send them out to do it.
It's just basically a census is what they're gonna do. They're not gonna be building beaver analogs. They're going
just
to
gonna
be
get the data.
just
That's
getting,
right.
gathering census data, baseline data.
That's correct. And what the, so this is just a draft, but what I did a GIS, a mapping exercise to randomly select pieces of streams on the forest that were less than 10% stream slope. So there are anecdotes of beavers at steeper streams than that, but there's every reason to believe that's real fringy. Like one might live there every now and again, but that's not primo habitat. And then I put a point every 100 meters or something like that along all these streams, and I randomly selected a subset of those points. So the point of this is that my aim is with these randomly selected reaches, I want to be able to, the information that we collect from doing this, I want to be able to apply to other parts of the forest that I haven't actually visited. So it may not apply to every single inch of the forest, but a great deal of the forest. And the way that you do that is through this random selection of sample sites.
Where are we?
I apologize. I make this, like I sit here and look at all these streams all day.
This is right where we are. This is right
So
I wanna know
that at
specifically
8
where.
o'clock is Thompson Creek. So
That must
North
be
Thompson,
Rude
Middle
Eye.
Thompson, South Thompson.
Rude Eyes at the top.
Then at 6 o'clock, or sort of center mass there, is Capitol Creek and Snowmass Creek, West Maroon, East Maroon, Conundrum, and then you jump over to 3 o'clock, and that's Hunter Creek, and Woody Creek, Collins Creek is a little tributary of Woody Creek.
Nothing on Prince Creek?
Warren Lake.
No, and so I trimmed the hydrological universe here down to the forest itself. I'm not going to go on private land. And I was trying to stay sort of kind of Pickett County and, at least obviously in the Roaring Fork watershed. And Thompson Creek always comes up. Lisa and I talked about it, and I have some, like, beavers are coming and going up there. Like, that's a good place for me to kind of get a eye on anyway. And then that Hunter and Maroon and Conundrum even, they're all in the wilderness, capital W wilderness. So there's not much going on up there management-wise. It's ever busier. But those should be, those are not pristine, entirely undisturbed environments, but they're pretty close. They were never dredged down their length, or they haven't had massive, anthropogenic structural change. So, so what'll happen is these seasonals, they're gonna get this map and like a GPS and a camera and a rangefinder, a couple simple tools, and they're gonna go to as many of these X's as they're able to go to. And so rather than trying to do a really super thorough survey of a small number of sites, I'm going to send them to do basically a cursory survey at as many sites as possible to try to ramp up the sample size.
I have a question. I think this is great. I think we should fund it, but I have a request. You have to let us know when we can go on one. We're not going to pay for this unless we get the benefit of
That's
the
fine.
travel.
I mean, do you know where a lot of this?
All of us would be out there. You might be in trouble.
We all want to go bog snorkeling.
Okay, we'll bring lunch.
It'll be a little sporty, and some will be easy.
I'll do the easy ones.
And
They can
some
do the
will
sporty
be
ones.
some will be less easy. But that's okay. That's what these
I think
these
it
are
would be
the
great.
this is what seasonals do in the summer.
Did you want to go through the other slides? Did you have more?
Oh.
Didn't share the qualities. What is a seasonal? What are the requirements for a seasonal? Is that a college
They have
graduate?
to be young, live in a dorm,
We
and like to hike.
Don't we fund already 1 or 2 seasonal for the Forest Service?
That's enforcement.
It wouldn't surprise me in a bit, but I dare say those are recreation people and not.
He's got
fish
some
people.
very highly educated seasonals that are.
These are grad students?
It depends. There's pay grades and the standards go up, but the ones that I usually hire have 4, 5, 6 seasons, so usually with different agencies, usually in different states, in different environments. So usually they have done fisheries work for different reasons, different purposes, and different environments, using different equipment, and because I want them to be able to function as independently as
They're
possible.
professional seasonal Forest Service workers.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
a new thing.
There are not a lot of permanent jobs, and so you got to try to earn your stripes as a seasonal so that when a permanent job comes available, that you're the obvious person to hire.
Because God knows we don't need any more than you in 1.2 million acres. I mean,
Yeah, well,
why would we have
lucky you
more
got
jobs
me at this
available?
point.
That's crazy.
And so,
Add the 5 of us and make his job a lot harder, probably.
well, I think they'll enjoy this. And I've looked at a bunch of these random sites I can see from aerial photos. And there's a couple I was looking at today that are, it's going to be like a 2 or 3 day backpack trip to get in and out. They're really up there.
Mhm.
So
Guys
it'll,
ready?
it'll be cool.
Yeah, well, those guys are.
And so, especially given 1 year of effort, like I'm not going to get, like causation. Like if we had these conditions, then you will have beavers. Like we're not going to get there. And, statistically speaking, like causation is a very high bar. So I'm not even pursuing that. We're merely looking for association and correlation. That, okay, we went to 122 sites. We found evidence of beavers at 60 of them, and 50 of them had these characteristics. That would lead me to believe that those characteristics are probably playing a part in the fact that they're there or not.
More information is going to be a lot better than no
I mean, at this point, yeah, we have
exactly.
0.
Will
Or-
this be structured in a way where they can like publish a paper?
Yeah, potentially, and it would be like an observational study, which is different than a controlled experiment
Sure.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I published a paper in Southwestern Naturalist, is a small
that's a good
journal
one.
in the Southwest that was just an observation that we had talked to other people, and there was we got a lot of encouragement that we should publish this stuff. It was about pike minnow, and so. We just wrote it up and said, listen, we went here and this is what we found, and that looks weird, that doesn't jive with the literature, here you go. And they published it, and it ended up being useful for people. So potentially, I'm not sure.
That's a great
Well,
point.
you guys had us at the word beaver, right?
Yeah, well, good.
Chicken nugget.
They're popular these days.
They are.
But so we should hopefully get some idea of where they are, just the spatial distribution. But then some idea of the habitat too. Do we have a lot of good habitat that's underutilized? Are we missing a lot of habitat? All these kind of things. So the idea is that if 5 years from now the county says, okay, well, listen, we got maybe some beaver money again. Where would be an appropriate and useful place to do this kind of work? Hopefully we can look back at the information we gathered and be like, well, this portion of this watershed. It has habitat that looks very similar to where we find beavers, but there are no beavers, so maybe we should add some beavers. And so then when someone asks you, why did you go spend that money on Express Creek, you can say, well, because we didn't think there were many beavers and the habitat was good. We'll have some limited information to answer these kind of
But
questions.
there's another part to this, isn't there? Don't you need housing for these people?
Yeah, one of the things that Salary will consume
200%.
3/5. Yeah. Well, of
The
yeah,
housing will consume.
Well, of this pot of river board, healthy river money, most of it goes to salary. Some of it goes to a truck, and I don't know. Sometimes our bureaucracy treats a truck as an option to cover 1 million acres. But then, and we need some limited amount of equipment, not very much. But then that left a bit of money unspoken for, and housing. I'm sure you hear
Not a bit.
nine times a day, and we're hard up for it. So the Forest Service told us to, here's some money, fill all these jobs that you've had vacant for all these decade. And so we try to fill those, but we didn't get any more money for trucks, and our bunkhouse didn't get any bigger. And so we have a bunkhouse in Rifle. It sleeps 10. It's expected to have 12 people in it, so it's kind of maxed out.
The one up here.
The Aspen Sopris is the same deal. They're, expect to be full, but maybe not. And actually, if 2 beds opened up in this Aspen bunkhouse, it would suit my purposes very well.
So just send them out into the forest more. They won't need a place
With
to
a
live.
tent.
Well, seasonals live in their car these days, but I don't think that's something we should encourage them to be doing.
Tents are better.
Well, yeah, tents. But in this case, it looks like there's some unspoken for money that I could offer. I could help if they have to rent something on the market, that I can at least help defer that cost. So, and that's on the order of $1,300 a month for this 6-month period. So, and I've talked to a couple of them, and I said, that you might think $1,300 would cover your rent, but it won't.
What about CPW? as a
1,300 per person.
For the two.
So if they
for
live
the-
together, it'd be
for-
2,600.
No, for the Beaver crew, 2 people, we could
1,300.
probably have 1,300. But so if they can find something, or if the 2 of them rent something together and they pay $2,000 and I can pay 1,300, they can split the difference, and they're still doing pretty well. But it's just a lot of loose ends. We don't know how many seasonals are coming. I hired a guy who's got a cat and a girlfriend. He doesn't want to live in the bunkhouse. So we spend all spring trying to jockey
So we'll
all
keep
this
the cat
stuff out.
and the girlfriend can go with it.
Yeah, I can't get rid of this cat. So at any rate, so we're working on the housing bit.
And we talked to Jody too to see if the county had any options, and nothing's available right now.
I do know something that's coming available in May. In Carbondale.
Well,
Yeah.
keep me in mind.
We have something in the trailer
Couple
park.
of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out to the private individuals. Does anybody want to house 2 Forest Service seasonals for the summer doing this beaver inventory? Put it out to Wilderness Workshop members, of which I am one, to whatever networks are out there.
Yeah.
And I bet you could find someone who'd say, I would love having 2 people living in my house for 6 months and get some rent money.
Well, we're going to have to do all of those things. My wife works at the school here in town, so we'll probably hit up the teacher network. There's always, somebody's always going to whatever, Ireland for the summer, and there's a place there for 3 months. We'll see what we'll have to work something out.
Also, another thought, it's maybe beyond the scope of this, but there's a huge number of beavers living on private land. I live on Capitol Creek, and I could show you 60 years worth of history on where the beaver dams were built and washed out, where they're currently existing on the private land.
Yeah.
Places, beaver dams on Nicholson Creek, all the beavers disappeared, and I think they all went down into Capitol Creek, and there's just a whole series of new dams there. And things like that, all on private land though, but the beavers migrate from the forest down into the private land and back, so that could add some more history and
well, and they tend to
interest
be
in the whole study.
they tend to go where they've been before. You know, the things that make that piece of Capitol Creek good habitat now, well, have probably been true for, you know, millennia. And so you tend to find them in the same places, and they alter the habitat. So there's these statistical problems about when you find a new beaver dam, because it's never new. There was always something there beforehand, and they changed the landscape. So, at any rate, and they do move around, and they recolonize areas that, you know, individual population, or not a population, but a family unit, they come and go. But then there's always, hopefully, is a source population nearby that when the little ones get a year or two old, the males all get the boot. And so they have to punch out over land and find a new place to be. And they'll kill each other. So that's the other thing, moving beavers around. If you take beavers to a place where there are beavers, they will not all survive that. And so you don't want to put them places that are already occupied.
Those damn beavers.
But so trying to get some sense of where we're at kind of capacity wise. And the more of them we can have moving up off of private and going up onto the forest, the better.
You know, there's a beaver dam, well, I don't know if it, and there used to be 2 beavers that lived in it down here, right in town. Right by the power plant, the old power plant. There's a pond there, and it used to be very, very active.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
So, Lisa, you're going to bring us a request for funding of some kind?
We'll bring the resolution. The funding is already in place because you adopted that, appropriated that in the 2023 budget.
Okay, great.
And so the next step will be a resolution to authorize the board to enter into the agreement with the Forest Service to do the project.
Cool. Great.
And if who's going to be the point person, I assume one of you two would be. If I find housing, who do I call? Do I call you?
Just call it. Yeah.
One of you.
Yep.
Yeah, please do. They'll be very nice, clean people that will be out
might be a
in
little
the
muddy.
woods most of the day. Yeah, they're muddy.
They're going to be happy
But
to
they'll
have
change,
something other than a tent, I can guarantee.
Change in the driveway or whatever.
Okay, well, I think we got the message, and we need to move along.
Yeah.
So,
wonderful.
thank you so
all
much, Clay.
for,
Thank you, Lisa and
your
Lisa.
time,
so
and,
much. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool.
You can always
Great.
come and talk to us.
Yeah, well, thank you.
That was very fun. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, it's okay.
Should we keep going, guys, or do you need a 5-minute break? Or?
No, I need to be walking around.
Okay, so she needs to leave right away, John, so can I jump into my
20 minutes.
open discussion thing so she can hear it?
Yeah, and I've got an open discussion one too.
Okay, so this morning I met with ACES, Chris Lane and Molly, and I forget the other person's name, the head of ACES, about an upcoming presentation they're doing at the Wheeler on wolf reintroduction to sort of educate the public about, yes, this could be near here, this is the situation, here are some things to know about wolves, here's how to live with wolves, that sort of thing. And so they're bringing in a couple of other people from the stakeholders group. I recommended they get in touch with Matt Yamashito. Actually, I'm going to get in touch with him from the CPW, and they're looking for. And then I recommended a rancher who was also on the SAG to be on the panel. They didn't have a rancher on the panel, and so we spent about an hour and a half talking about how to make this as comprehensive for our citizens as possible so that people could really learn things and ask appropriate questions and so on. So they would love to have Pitkin County sponsorship, like our logo on their brochures. They're looking for ACRA, Aspens, and Pitkin County, and then they also have some other entities like environmental organizations and stuff. And altogether they need about $2,000 worth of funding. And so I think if you guys are interested, we could do that from our discretionary fund, which we haven't tapped into since we're only in our 3rd week. But that's all they need. And so I would encourage us to just give them $2,000 and have our logo on the pamphlets, because we did, I believe it was 84% yes vote for wolves. It's somewhere between 79 and 84. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know it was a pretty hefty majority, so I think we'd be representing our constituents if we supported this program.
So would we be the only one funding? They're not asking any of these other
Well, they're going to
organizations?
Aspen and Accra, and I don't know if they're gonna ask them for funding, but I'll ask Chris when I
Yeah,
call
because
him.
I think we should share the funding. If not, I don't have a problem funding it, but I think it's appropriate if we
To
get
ask.
money from everybody.
Okay.
But
I'll
I
ask you.
definitely support it and look forward to attending it.
Great.
When is it?
March. I forget what day.
Can I just add?
Coming up pretty fast.
Thanks, Francie.
Yeah. I have another topic, but I want to do it for
I just
Kelly.
wanted to make sure everybody was okay with my pursuing
Okay,
this.
I'd love to have it, learn a little bit more, just so we understand, is this an advocacy or is this an informational?
It's informational.
Right.
It's not advocacy. It doesn't matter whether it's advocacy because we passed Proposition 114. There is nothing to advocate for.
Right.
If
Got
you,
it.
if you see what I mean,
Yep,
yeah.
yep,
So
okay.
it's really about wolves are entering our ecosystem, if not right
This is what
here
to know.
nearby. So this is what
Excellent.
you should know, and this is how you can learn to live with wolves.
I
And
think it's
when you
great.
go hiking, this is what you do, and that kind of thing. And you?
So I would say let's guarantee a certain amount of support.
Okay.
Some amount, 500 or a third of it, and then see if Aspen and Accra come through with any support, or if any other groups come up with any support. But we could up the amount we give, but if we guarantee
offer
a
a
certain
match.
amount, then that would be an inducement to, like the city of Aspen, to put some money in or whatever.
So do you want me to ask Chris tonight whether anybody else is funding it? If the $2,000 he mentioned was just for Picking County, or is that everything I
Right,
need?
just clarify that. Now I have
Clarify,
a
and I
problem
could
with
bring it-
500 or 750 to start off.
I could bring it back to you guys tomorrow after he answers that.
Great.
I'm fine with
And I'd be
Okay.
willing to go higher, but I think we should guarantee a lower amount and
Okay.
then see if there's other people giving financial support.
I'm
So-
good with that.
Okay.
Okay, great, thanks.
Can I just, before Kelly has to leave real quick, I want to thank you for bringing to staff's attention that we didn't get our health and wellness benefit. I had pulled up trying to figure out how to get into this system, pulled up my paychecks, and I thought it came later in the year. So thank you, because if you hadn't caught it, we would not have been getting it.
Oh, I was
I
totally
watched my
aware of
P's
it.
and Q's.
And I apologize that we had that oversight.
No,
We'll
I told
get it to you.
it was a
Yeah.
test, and Kelly passed, and Francie passed it.
And I told Lindsay I was wondering about it, but not worrying about
Yeah.
Kelly got it.
Yeah.
But thank you, Kelly. I just wanted to throw that out
John, you
there.
have something for us?
Well, just fairly quickly, and I believe we have Lindsay Maish on also. I think as the board is aware, when we went through the RFP process for the Vital Mental Health Services, we had a change in contractor from Mine Springs to the Hope Center. With that, we've been having conversations with our partners in the funding group around crisis services. And crisis is not our contract, it's actually a contract between Rocky Mountain Health Plans and the provider. But Rocky Mountain Health Plans has awarded the crisis contract in Eagle and Garfield counties to the Hope Center. And we would like for approval to have the chair sign on to a letter for Picking County to make the request for the same change in contractor from Rocky Mountain Health to Rocky Mountain Health Plans from Mine Springs to the Hope Center. Now, Mine Springs would still be providing their core services in our community, to those on Medicaid, high acuity types of cases. That's really the core of their business, as well as being contracted with us on the PACT program. But this would be a change to have continuity with what's happening in the schools and what's happening in our neighboring counties among agencies. And Lindsay has been having conversations with our partner agencies, City of Aspen, Town of Snowmass Village, Aspen Valley Hospital, and the school district along these lines too. And I believe they are all looking at sending letters also. So while we don't have, we've got a draft letter, I don't have it printed out for you. I guess what we had asked is if the board would authorize the chair to sign on to a letter with that request to Rocky Mountain Health
I don't
Plans.
have a problem with it. It only makes sense.
I support that.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I'm good
I've-
with that.
I've had the pleasure to spend a lot of time driving around the state with Lindsay on jail tours. So I've heard a lot about,
I heard it was a
where
pretty tame
some of
jail
the
tour, though.
That was kind of, I thought it was a crisis.
where some of the
so it's
cracks have
appropriate.
been in providing these services and opportunities to improve. So I think
Thanks,
it
Lindsay.
would be a good idea.
And Lindsay, sorry, I probably took all the air out of the room. I don't know if you had anything to add. Okay.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Okay,
Wait, I've got something.
for discussion or future agendas?
This is for open discussion. With the change in the with the upcoming withdrawal of the application for an STR enrolled remote, I would like to ask my board to direct staff to research implementing an ordinance that would prohibit STRs enrolled remote. And I think that would require, perhaps some additional research on the part of the staff, but it's something that we've talked about for 6 months or more. And I think it's time to bring it back around. And I advise that this would be the appropriate time to ask that our board direct staff to look into doing this and bring something back to us.
Well, surprise, surprise, I support that.
You do support it?
I
No.
do.
You know what? I need the information because I don't support it at this time, obviously, without the information. And,
Well, that's what we're
yeah, I
requesting.
need to look at the whole thing, but I don't know. Does staff have, we've got staff pretty swamped right now with,
Well, and so this would probably come back to the attorney's office has really taken the lead on the ordinance work. I think we could work with the attorney's office to bring back that recommendation. It is a fairly brief language change, a bigger policy conversation.
yeah, but for me, it might be then we don't have STRs in any area that's not zoned for commercial use. I mean, it could be a broader discussion if we're gonna be fair and across the board and not discriminate, so.
It'll be two public hearings, right?
Yeah, and I would suggest that we may need a work session before we go into that, just to have that
I
conversation. Yeah.
discourage the use of commercial use because
I put
it's
it in
not
quotes.
commercial use, it's residential, it's not commercial use. Just saying.
So what I'm looking for is 2 other board members to agree to do that.
I agree.
And I don't have a problem doing it.
Okay.
I agree also.
I think it's a discussion we need to have, whether or not I'm gonna support it, I won't know
Right,
until
sure.
we discuss it.
I think that makes sense. So this
You're
is
not
the
being
obvious
asked to
step.
vote on it right now.
Right,
so.
okay.
That's
Yeah,
what
I
I
think
said.
this would be a good chance to get more information based on what's happened since we looked at it last spring or whenever that was.
Right, great, thank you.
We probably, or very likely, will be making changes in the STR regulation with regards to Redstone. I guess that could be done separately, but John might want to lump them
Package it
together
together,
into one.
right.
No, it's separate.
package.
Redstone
I
is
think
its
it's
own
separate
beast.
too, I agree, it's separate.
Its own beast.
I would prefer to keep them separate if you don't mind.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so,
All right.
need anything else, John?
I'm writing an email right now.
Thank you.
Is there any other board discussion?
Let's see.
There's several pieces of legislation I think that we need to talk about as a board, but we should carve out some time. I'm meeting with Kara and Suzanne tomorrow to talk about the land use conversation happening at the state level, but there's a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And Kelly, I'm looking at setting up a meeting, but not until February 27th, I think, I'm hoping, in Denver with those organizations to discuss RET. So I've kind of drafted some stuff for you and I to talk about.
One other thing. In light of a lot of the advertisements in the paper and the discussions about our airport future from Amory Levins and the Fly-Right group, I anticipate that people would expect a response of some sort from the county, and just to keep people apprised of how we're doing, and I haven't personally really heard that from anybody yet, but I'm thinking it would be good to keep that conversation going, and I have to say I have gratitude that it's become something that's in the public eye now, but I also think there's a lot of misinformation or maybe old recycled stuff coming out that really isn't news. And I think for the benefit of the public, we need to participate and to correct the public record as we see it being presented back to us from this group and other commenters.
In a column or something?
I don't know, but I wanted to discuss it and bring it up. I'm sure there's a plan, I just don't know what it is.
Well, I do know our communications team has been meeting on that, and I don't have an update on what they're looking at. We would also propose reaching out to the FAA to maybe have a representative from the FAA attend one of your meetings or a joint meeting of the board and the Airport Advisory Board, just to clarify what questions can be clarified.
Can I jump in on that? Because when Greg and I went to the thing at the Explorer, we brought it up very clearly with Amory and the group that was there, that we wanted Amory to set up a meeting with the people he'd been talking to and invite us whenever, wherever we would be there.
Absolutely,
And I haven't heard word one about that happening.
And Patty, I think that is the right strategy in one sense, because whenever we do provide information from the FAA, we haven't talked to the right people or asked the right
That's
questions
exactly
or
why
those sorts of things. And you can never disprove a negative, right? And so we would absolutely, if this group can arrange a meeting with representatives from the FAA, we'd be happy to attend and be there. We also felt like for our Airport Advisory Board, it might be good to just have a refresher on the grant assurances and such from our own ABO.
So maybe you want me to reach out to Amory and say, are you moving along with setting up a meeting that the Board of Commissioners can attend? Because it seemed like everyone in the room thought that was a great idea when we were at the Explorer.
That'd be fine with me. I was just most concerned because when I read the articles or the ads in the paper and see the talk about it, it's almost like a lot of this is new information, and it really isn't. And there's a lot of hyperbole, I have to say, and some flat-out mischaracterizations. And so it could help us all just to clear the air, whether and how that session happens. Sure, why not? If Amory wants to set something up with his consultants at the FAA, let's welcome him to do it.
Maybe
But I
we
also
could
think
have
we should
Rich
have a
approach him
response.
on that.
We already have.
So since Greg and I brought it up clearly at the Explorer bookstore, I think it would be appropriate for one of us to reach out. And Greg, if you want to, you want me to? Or
Well, the only thing I'm concerned about is because I'm not part of the FBO discussion, this is about the airport in general.
Well, it's about everything. So
Right.
I'll reach out to him and just send him a message saying, we want to know if you're looking into setting up the meeting that we talked about at the Explorer bookstore. Make it simple.
So the other day at a party, Amory said he wanted to get all the articles and the different things that his group has put together and get it to the commissioners.
It should be on his website.
And I suggested he make one or two binders and give them to the commissioners with all of his articles, something that he could add to. It'd be like a loose leaf thing that we could just have them for our reference up in the office, and we could read them individually at our own time.
Well, he
And
could
I
just-
suggested he do that as a way. He wanted to make a separate binder for each of us with all the information, and I said I didn't think that was necessary, but
It should be on his website. He
one-
mentioned
one
it.
or
It's
two of 'em.
Send it to us electronically. Then we would each have access to
So it's a way he wanted to, it's like a letter from the public to the commissioners to get it to all of us, and so we
Well,
could
I'd be happy
expect
to have my
something
own.
from him.
I'd love to.
With
sure.
all,
I'd rather have
his
my
whole entirety of all of his material all in one place to
If he
look
gives
at.
us one binder, we can scan it and send it to anybody electronically if he doesn't
Or
do
he
it
could
for
send
us.
us 5 and we wouldn't have to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. He
So
has
if you're
staff,
talking to
let
him, maybe
use
you
his
could
staff.
suggest.
Yeah.
We could just do an electronic thing and get us the link to all of us that we could, on our own time schedule, look at this stuff.
And I think just the final comment I'd have on that is that the upshot of this is there's a higher level of public interest and curiosity about this. So this is an opportunity to clear the air on a lot of things. So let's do.
Okay,
Let's take
I
advantage
agree.
of it.
Okay, I'll reach out.
Great.
Any other open
That's it
discussion?
for me.
I just have future agenda.
Okay. John, do you have any future agenda items for us?
Just one that would come to the board tomorrow as an addition to the agenda would be an executive session to discuss centennial deed restrictions with council.
I thought
I
we were
talked
going to
to
schedule
Rich.
executive time, not put it on tomorrow.
No, I talked to Rich. It'll be tomorrow afternoon. That was his plan anyway, at the end of the day. I don't think it's gonna be.
Well, it's a request of our partners who are in the middle of negotiations and looking for some direction from us.
Yes, and Laura sent me the language for going into exec, so.
Well, depending on time, I may be heading to Silverthorne tomorrow, right after the
You
meeting.
might be
but
getting what?
Heading to Silverthorne tomorrow for Northwest COG EDD meeting. I haven't totally decided yet if I'm
Well,
going to go.
I looked at tomorrow's agenda and with,
Steve and I were driving to Denver.
I don't think Bennett is gonna be too long, and then the other one was canceled, and.
Fancy, you never say that ahead of time.
I'm just saying, it looked like we could cram it in there, so.
Steve and Steve and Kelly are driving to Denver tomorrow night too, so.
Yeah.
I have,
I don't have anything either.
I have two agenda things, if that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, on our agendas, we have the retreat posted for the 2nd. We don't have a separate posting for the retreat on the 3rd. It's included in the posting for the 2nd, but we need to have a clear posting so the public can see that. That's one thing. The other things, I've already told Charlotte I will be out of town the end of February, 1st of March, and then I'll worry about my time frame in August when it gets closer to that.
Thanks for the reminder, Greg. Remember, you're gonna be running the meeting on February 7th.
Where are you? Are you gonna be gone when?
He will be running the meeting.
Oh, on the 7th.
And my kids, see y'all tomorrow.
I'll be back in Rifle.
Okay.
John, do you have times for us for, next week?
8:30 to,
Yeah,
I'm not asking.
it's not gonna be short, full days. They're gonna be full days. Give me just a second to pull it up, Francie.
it's on the agenda.
Yeah. We will be, right now, I have us starting on February 2nd at 8:30 in the morning and going till 4 o'clock. And then on the 3rd, same thing, starting at 8:30 in the morning and looking to adjourn around 4:15.
Okay, thanks.
And we're meeting at Dorhosier upstairs at the Cato room.
Dorhosier in the Cato room.
Okay.
Good. I'm glad to hear
All
that.
right. Okay, see you guys tomorrow at
And
noon,
lunch
right?
will be provided?
Lunch will be provided and
yummy
snacks and breakfast and,
breakfast
yeah, the lunches have switched to box lunches versus the buffet for the size, but
John.
they are, is either Plato's, but it's too worried about losing you guys.
Oh, yeah, then we would never go back.
Is there wine with lunch?
Well, I can bring a flask.
Pocket flask.
Are we adjourned?
We are adjourned.